ClevelandMoto Podcast number 307 and 3, 2, 1. And they're off. Wait, my popper didn't pop. There it goes. Excellent. Yes, everybody's got some sort of a delicious, Majesty.
Ooh.
This is a Market Garden product, really good.
Mm-hmm. I bought this for Nick, but then he's not here today. Wait, how can I do this? There.
What is it?
Millennial hipster.
Yes.
The millennial hipster. That's perfect, actually. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, that's so.
Is it going down smooth?
Very smooth. Yeah.
Hey.
So since we're not at the shop right now, and we're not doing the podcast at the shop, I've been forced to drink this all by myself.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's really sad. So one of our listeners was nice enough to mail us. This is John Smith, of course. Well, John Smith, Chris Smith's long-lost brother. John Smith sent us from the wilds of Maryland these craft cocktails in a bottle. And so this one is special. This one's called a carrot daiquiri.
Huh.
And the best way that I can describe this is it's not as carrot as you think. So if you don't like carrots, all right, so if you really, really like carrots, my wife, Dr. Waters, fucking loves carrots. Mm-hmm. Like, she will compete with a caribou on a carrot eating contest.
Yeah,
and
what's up with that, Doc?
Yeah, exactly. So this
actually,
since our podcast listeners love this kind of stuff, he wrote us a beautiful letter too on a beautiful piece of stationery with a Vespa on the front with a really cool fox driving the Vespa. But a carrot daiquiri, for those podcast listeners who like drinking, is 1 3/4 ounces of rum, 1 ounce of carrot juice, 3/4 of an ounce of falernum, which we talked about before, a 1/2 ounce of lime juice, and 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. And you'll end up with a carrot daiquiri. Now, I like to take my ice and abuse it like it owes me money. I like to beat it within an inch of its life in a Lewis bag. But because the podcast came on a little suddenly today, I'm just drinking this over ice. And it's COVID's fault why I just had to finish this bottle myself without any of y'all's help.
That'd probably be good with a little straw in it. Straw in it.
Mm-hmm. And again, any recipe that requires rum, you can substitute Stroh Austrian rum if you're extraordinarily manly. Yeah.
I do love the carrots. I like to get the Bot Farms like giant carrot juice bottles.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes I drink them for lunch, just like a whole bottle. But then if you forget, the next day you're surprised pretty quickly about what happens. You're like, I'm dying.
Yeah. I did carrot ginger orange juice. That's kind of a thing I like.
Dr. Waters ate so many carrots in college, she turned orange.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the spray tan, it was just...
My corn daiquiris turn out a little chunky, though.
Oh, my goodness.
She'll do a wheelie. At least she did in college, right?
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That's right.
Hey, did anybody else notice that Smith got a little work done? He's trying to get his edge. He's getting a little edgier over there. Look at that.
I see that.
Nice sleeve.
You got some Lee press-on sleeves.
Is that a side effect of working on Uranus? Or
that's so he can fit in with the rest of the people who ride Januses.
Well, this was actually a gift from one of my riders.
Oh, yeah?
One of your riders?
Yeah.
Janus rider?
Thank you, Oscar.
Yeah, I love that. I do love the instant. And so hold that up, Chris, because I believe I'm seeing a skull. Am I seeing a skull with Liberty spikes or some sort of a spider web behind it?
Oh yeah,
his are more impressive than mine. I was
going to say, if you're going to have a giant sleeve tattoo, it's good to have one that's incredibly cliched.
Tell Tell us more about who's been riding your Janus.
Hang on. Let me turn it around a little bit so you can see the other side. Does that look better like there?
No.
No? All
I
right,
like the skull better. Yep.
all right. Let me. I've got these detachable elbows, so I can turn that around like that.
Is it like Phil's leg?
That's obviously your strong hand.
Oh, you saw that the leg?
Oh yeah. I imagine I'll see it in person one day.
Yeah. AMA vintage for the next time.
You know, how that thing doesn't have any tattoos yet is amazing. You'd figure that if you took that leg enough places, Phil, somebody would tattoo the thing.
You know, I was thinking about it, and I'm glad you brought it up, because if you do own a leg, there's only one thing that could be better for your leg is a leg with a bunch of tattoos.
Right.
So in celebration of Chris, I wanted to show you guys, that I am participating. I got the tiger up here.
I have one of those too.
I got the tribal, So yeah, if we're gonna enter the land of tattoos that you can take off, it's always nice to have some. We get those as samples at the shop. People send us stuff,
Awesome.
and we got a sample one time of fake tattoo condoms.
I think I have a little Mexican.
Oh, Oscar, that's right. Yeah, I think those were all from the same Halloween party, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
So I have something that would go perfectly with the detached leg.
Yes. Okay. So with our.
Oh no.
What do you have, John? Oh, do you have an Oscar? Oh,
Yeah.
Blue velvet.
nice.
Who wants to throw this in their nose?
Oh no.
Hey, Hoff needs that for oxygenating his beer when he makes it.
It smells like old person. Why does it smell like old person?
His mother-in-law's gasping on the floor right now.
The old leaches in through the nose holes. It just kind of leaches into that whole system. Disgusting.
Those are called house flavors.
I used to just take the oxygen off my welder when I had a hangover and just hit the button on the side and just.
This thing says it has 1,100 pounds of pressure.
1,100?
Prove it.
Yeah.
That's legit.
I mean, no, 1,500. I mean, is that what that's telling me right there? Wait.
They're usually around 1,500 psi.
That's what it is.
Hey, John, is that a vintage Scout sitting behind you?
Yeah, my backdrop changed from a Corvette to a Scout.
Wow. All right.
Did your backdrop change, or did the actual vehicle change?
The Scout is now in the garage.
The Scout, which is not an actual electronic background like I've got, or Bex, who's got the single ladies apartment background.
Yeah. How do you notice my digital background? No, wait, here. There's my gear.
There you go. She could download that one off of the interwebs. Yeah.
I'm selling my other house. Well, technically, I sold my other house, so I thought it would look better to have a Corvette sitting in the garage there than that. Apparently, it worked. Apparently, it worked. I got an offer.
Oh, you did? Congratulations, man.
Well done.
Yeah, full offer. The first full price. The first person that looked at it.
Good.
Yeah, hell yeah.
$100,000 one day on the market.
Wow.
So that's cool.
Congratulations.
Bex has gone formal.
Well, we got to see if we actually get the money. I mean, there's still a lot.
So, I mean, that's absolutely fantastic that should move out so quickly. I'm glad that you struck now while the iron was hot. I'm actually concerned that 6 months from now, it's not going to be so easy to sell a house.
Yeah.
Did you guys see what the interest rates are down to? I saw a 15-year mortgage down at 2.17. And a 30-year, I thought it was 4 or 5 or something goofy like that. And holy crap, they're just giving money away.
Where the interest rate is negative.
Yeah. Where the bank's actually paying you to live in the house.
Yeah, it's a very strange market. Yeah.
This year was the first year California had less persons living in California than since like 1900.
Oh, really? Yeah, Texas is rather pissed off about that.
Mm-hmm. Are they moving to Texas?
Texas keeps saying, why are you importing so many Californians to our sovereign, our Commonwealth?
Yeah, one of my cousins just arrived last month in Texas.
Republic, right? The Republic of Dr. Waters over here saying it's a republic, Phil. It's a republic.
Right.
Yeah. We don't want the hate mail from Texas because it's big and they write in crayon.
Texas needs to build a wall between itself and California, though.
Well, there's a state. Quite a bit of land.
Going to build a wall and
two.
Pay for it.
Yeah, exactly. Wait. Okay, I'll get one more appropriate.
I did want to have an actual motorcycle related conversation if I could. Don't mind. If nobody minds. I'm just
what are you drinking?
Your host, Unkie Phil, and to my left,
Taketsuru. I can't say it. Hey, tell me how to say it. I don't care because Mr. Smith was nice enough to give me 3 bottles of very good bourbon tonight for just doing the simple task of replacing a food grinder.
Disposal.
Wait, okay, look. A food grinder is on the front end. A disposal is on the back end. So what end were you working on?
Both the Janus end.
Did you work on a disposal or did you work on
a disposal? It was a disposal. I couldn't. I'm already a couple in. I'm about 2 bourbons in, so just give me a break.
You ordered all the parts for the food processor that actually belong in a disposal. Yeah.
Well, luckily, all we had to do was cut one pipe to make it fit. So, and the electrical wasn't. Everything else fit. So, and I didn't want any compensation, but Mr. Smith was generous enough to give me a bottle of Basil Hayden's and this delicious Cleveland spiced Christmas bourbon.
So, what did you think of that? The Christmas bourbon.
Delicious.
Yeah, it's good, right?
Chris has good taste.
Not much of it, but it is good taste.
Except for that blue stuff you brought that one time. That was not good taste.
Are you still whining about that?
I liked it.
He's still hung over from it.
Yeah, that's the problem. It's been 3 months. I'm still hung over.
You should avoid all effort. Like any bright colored liquor is always a problem. Doesn't matter whether it's blue or green. Doesn't matter. Bright colors and liquor is never a good idea.
If it's not brown, don't drink it down.
Sure.
Sleepy's Janus is still dyed blue.
So we shot this thing Tuesday at the shop, all social distance and everything. And I walk in, and the first thing I see is just Chris's Janus just sitting there, just on display for the whole world to see when you walk in.
A shining Janus glaring at you.
Just there, right?
Right there in your face. Was it winking at you?
No, but it's much burlier than I expected. It's a burly Janus. Yeah. And
Santa Cruz has Janus, and it's a rehab center.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. It's the Janus rehab. It's for when Sleepy gets his Janus to blue.
I like that. Former motorcycle riders.
Yeah.
Depending on the ride, right?
That's
when you really end up in a bad way and you got like, man, I really got to get back into Janus.
Yeah. Got to get my Janus shiny again.
Got to get a Janus tune-up.
Do you think I should bleach my Janus?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, Chris's Janus was very lubed up, but it could use a little polish. I think.
Okay. Was it getting tight? Tight Janus?
But you know what?
They can take care of your fluffy Janus.
There's quite a few brown parts as expected, but unfortunately there's quite a bit of like weird greenish color too, which is kind of weird to see on an anus.
Chris,
were you okay with him?
I heard your Janus had its first lube job. How did that come out?
It did. So the Janus had its first lube job, and there. Would anybody like to guess how many oil filters are on the Janus?
2.
Yeah.
3.
It's literally it's one of those ones that has a screen. It's a replaceable screen. Well, it's a forever screen, so you just clean the screen forever like an old Kimco. They work great. But what's remarkable is how many Amish people have had their hands on Chris's Janus. There's the more that I started getting up in Chris's Janus, the more evidence I found of Amish, that the Amish had been there. So the deeper you dive into Chris's Janus, the more evidence you find of local artisanal Amish craftsmanship.
Did you find a corn cob in his Janus?
You might need to borrow your respirator.
So can you tell all the manual labor from the Amish and on the Janus?
Yeah, but again, we've been admiring Chris's Janus at the shop since he's dropped it off there, and we have become quite fond of Chris's Janus. I can't do it anymore.
I find myself thinking about Chris's Janus all day long.
I just wonder when Chris's Janus is going on rum springing.
All right. Are we good on that?
Yeah. I think we're good.
All right.
You're going to have to come back to it later, I'm sure.
Just checking to make sure that we covered that.
It wasn't bad.
Well, you can combine Janus and Buell's.
Yeah, right. But,
Woo!
yeah.
Janus Blast.
The Blast. The Janal Thunderbolt.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
So I did want to talk for a second about tires. And here's why I want to talk about tires. Because you can make mistakes on tires. And this is important. If you are using old motorcycles, like many of us do, and like many of our customers at the shop do, old motorcycles can get tricky with tires. And old motorcycles measured all the tires in the comfortable measurement of inches, right? We all know, we understand, like, this is what 8 inches looks like. We all know, right? There's no question about it, right?
Very familiar, yes.
It's 8 inches. Exactly. So, and this is Irish 8 inches. So but now, the trouble is they don't sell tires that way anymore. Most companies don't do that. They sell tires metric. And so whereas an old tire might be something like 3.5 by 18, right? So the middle measurement, hello.
We're saying hi, V.
Hi, babe.
What's going on, girl? Did you come down to see what your daddy does on Thursdays?
Yeah. She's like, why do you come upstairs falling over all the time?
Look away.
Yeah. Avert your eyes.
He says a lot of stupid stuff, and then he wobbles around the house.
In here?
Does your dad have pants on?
Oh, do I have pants on?
Yes.
Okay.
Knock, knock.
Knock, knock. Hey, who's there?
Who's there?
Panther.
Panther. Panther who?
Panther who?
Panther, no Panther. We're doing a podcast. I thought we were going to do a Janus joke, so I was like, ugh. I thought we were going to totally different direction, so pretty good.
Oscar, get your mind out of the gutter.
I don't know why Dad
out of you, Janus.
Janus again.
Yeah, get your mind out of Chris's Janus.
Oh, man. All right, so back to motorcycle tires, if you will. So it's the strangest thing because we live in a very mixed up world where the diameter of the tire is still measured in inches, right? Because it is. So we have, 15-inch tires, 17-inch tires, 18, 19, 21, if you're weird. Like there's all kinds of sizes of tires that are all measured by inches this way. So they're measured by inches. Like I said, this is 21 inches in the world of motorcycles, okay? So the problem, though, is on the other way, they're not measured in inches anymore. They used to be measured in inches. Any of you weird scooter people will know that a scooter tire is either 3 inches, 3.5 inches, or 4 inches. Pretty easy, right? But now all motorcycle tires in the world and car tires in the world are measured by metric, right? So they're all measured in a metric measurement of their girth, right? And so a motorcycle tire, like, let's use example, an old Honda CB750. When we need an example of something on this podcast, we use a Honda CB750. Do you know why? Because it's a universal Japanese motorcycle. Enough said. If you don't like the Honda 750, well, you can talk to me about that. All right.
Would it be appropriate to say, go fuck your hat?
Exactly. So, I would encourage you to enjoy some intercourse with your headgear. So, when we talk about those old Honda CB750s, the back tire on those, right? The back tire on the Honda CB750 would have called for a 4-inch tire. Okay. So a 4-inch tire, which we have kind of in modern world associated with a 130. So a 130 metric works out really good in the place of the old 4-inch rear tire. That big. That's right. Bex has heard this before.
No stranger to that story.
I have a feeling that she's explained the difference between metric and inches before. Yes. And so it is absolutely true that 130 millimeters is, give or take, the right measurement to actually be a little on the chonky side. It is a tiny bit on the chonky side to put on the back of your CB750, but it does work. It is muy bueno. Okay, so, and you can get all the modern rubber in that size. But the second number is the number that causes people a lot of problems. So the first number in the old days would have been 4, as in 4 inches, right? So the old 4-inch thing worked great. And so now that was cool, but we didn't have to worry about the height of it, because if you had a 4-inch wide tire, it was 4 inches wide. Who gave a dip how tall it was? Because we weren't dealing with radial tire technology. We were all kind of running around on bias ply tire technology. And a 4-inch wide tire was as tall as a 4-inch wide tire was, just what it was. And a 5, et cetera. So 3.5, 2, pizza slicer, 2.5 inches or smaller. And you'd get into that with older bikes. And it was easy. You had a Royal Enfield, you had a 3.5 by 18 on the front, you had a 3.5 by 18 on the back, or you had a 19 on the front and 18 on the back. And it was super, super simple. But there is that crossing point where weird vintage stuff has to be fed by today's modern parts supply. And if you ask Dunlop to make you a 4-inch by 18 tire, they're going to tell you, we don't make enough of those to justify doing that anymore. So perverted, weird, fetishy companies like Coker Tire, they'll still make these odd sizes. They'll still make that weird stuff that it does look appropriate on your vintage machine. If you want that 1/4-inch awesome white wall, or you want that 2-inch white wall, Coker Tires who you're going to need to talk to. And they may not only make that tire for your bike every couple of years or so, but that's where you're going to find that period correct tires to go on your bike. Now, this is where it gets dicey, is the sidewall. Pay attention to that number, because if your original owner's manual simply says that your back tire is a 3.5 by 18 or a 3.5 by 19, there's no information about how high the sidewall is. And this becomes important. I can tell you that for most applications, the first number, that 130 or 140 or 150 or, God bless it, 200 size tire, that's informational. That is, if we take a set of verniers and we spread them out, that's going to be about what it fits between our swing arm or our chain guard. That's going to fit. That's going to clear. But how high it is called the aspect ratio. And when we get into that number is not a metric measurement. And this is what's freaking confusing. This number side to side is absolutely a measurement. You can measure it with, a rule. You can get on there and you can say, this is 130 millimeters, right? But the next number, which is going to be like a 70 or an 80 or a 90, that number is actually the percentage of the width number. Okay. So this gets very confusing to people because that is not.
That's why they call it That's why they call it an aspect ratio. It's a ratio. It's a ratio of the width of the tire to the height of the tire.
Yep.
So it's a higher percentage, the higher the number.
You got it. And I'm gonna tell you, as a guy who has installed way too many tires in my life, that you can't bank on that. So if you're building a project bike or you're resurrecting an old vintage bike, you can't go out there with your measuring stick and go, okay, check. I've done my math and I know that I need a 110. So I'm 110 millimeters fits between my swing arm stays. Got it. When it comes to that height, be extremely careful because, for instance, a 110 by 100, mathematically, it should be 110 wide and it should be 110 high, okay? From the point where it beads into the wheel and the rim to the point where the height of the tread is. So a 110 by 100 should very clearly be 110 wide and 110 high. It's not necessarily. Make sure you don't get caught up in that trap. And this happens a lot when people are working on old CB350s and working on old, vintage Japanese motorcycles where the front tire was spec'd out as a 3-inch by 19 or a 3-inch by 18. That when you open up your tire catalog and you look at that handy dandy chart and you go, oh, well, a 3-inch is equal to a 100. Be careful because remember, in the old tires, that aspect ratio wasn't a variable. It was a 3-inch tire. That meant you had 3 inches of width going for you, and the height had more to do with how much of the tread you'd burned off than the way it came from the factory. So we have seen people screw this up. And yes, if you do try to sub out a 130 by 80 or, in place of a 3.5 or a 4, what's going to happen is your width is going to be okay, but the meat of the tire, the top part, the crown of the tire is going to rub on the inside of your fender.
One of the first signs that somebody's put too big of tires on an old bike is when you put it on the center stand and it leans to the side.
Yes.
Because or it's not off the tires because that they're too big and it's not letting it sit on the center stand.
John is onto it. If you grab a vintage motorcycle and you go to put it on the center stand and it goes on the center stand way too easy and comes off the center stand way too easy, the tires are probably oversized. Now, you can be off a little bit. It's not a big deal. But the reason I'm saying this is, one, it is disgusting how much abuse a tire will take and still function as a tire. I mean, we know that. Bex showed up to Mid-Ohio with a tree sticking out of her tire. It's true. I was there. I saw it.
You did.
So let me ask you this. What kind of a tire is this? This is a dude, I don't know him, but apparently he liked Hayabusas and Harleys. And so he was next to me and I couldn't resist taking a picture of this. Maybe you guys can tell me what tire this is.
With class. Holy smoking G.
Yeah. But I like the fact that he took a Hayabusa and then turned it into a Harley.
It is true. I mean, so I'm not to be mistaken or anything, but I see the nitrous, the giant family-sized nitrous bottle in front of the, with all of his medallions that say that he was in the Air Force, he was a Navy SEAL, and he was also an Army Ranger, according to those.
Yeah.
He's got at least $14 worth of helmet.
He's got a lot of comfort going on, too.
I cannot tell for the life of me what that motorcycle is.
Well, it's a Harley.
It is a Harley. It's a V-Rod, I think.
Yeah.
It looks like a V-Rod to me, too.
I think it is. That looks like at least a 3000 series rear tire. It has more tread on it than I'm used to seeing. But what I would like to call your attention to is if you take a look, there is a pronounced groove in the side of the tire.
Oh, yeah.
See that? Do you know what that groove is called?
Problem?
Well, not only problem, but it's called girlfriend. So when he puts a girl on the back of that bike, something is rubbing hard that doesn't normally rub.
Mm-hmm. And his tire pressure is not right either, because look at this contact patch.
You know what, Steve? What's the recommended tire pressure for that?
A lot.
I do this for a living, and I wouldn't even venture a friggin' guess. Yeah.
Oh, and look at how he's enjoying his sidewalls on that unit too.
Well, he can do a certain amount of cornering before he involves metal items. But I mean, that's absolutely true. Like, I will admit it, and I've always admitted it. I am a friggin' fool for those. Oh God, what were those victories? Remember those victories that at the very last year that Victory did motorcycles, that Victory had those cruiser bikes that just had that like really freaking chonky back tire on them. That it was just like it was like called like the Victory bad decision or the Victory, whatever the hell it was. But it was like the last couple of years they did a Victory. They made this like street rod style motorcycle, and I'll admit it. Yeah, I don't care that you had to have a hamster wheel going into a pulley, going to an offset pulley to another pulley to make the power get out of the V-twin motor and get into that giant, ridiculous cement roller. I don't care. It looks cool. But yeah, you can't do anything fun with that. I mean,
when did they start doing the ratio stuff? All my bikes, I've never owned a new one. I've owned stuff from 40 to 60 years old right now, so probably this is not a new thing, but I've never owned a new enough bike to know when they started doing that.
That's how you know you ride old shit. So you know you ride old shit when you're not aware that there's a second number in the middle between the first number and the last number.
Well, cars typically the ratio aspect's 75 if there's no number on the thing. So, I mean, I could imagine that it would vary. Like you said, it varies on the width of the tire. Right. But you're probably better off to go with a smaller ratio than a bigger ratio when you get into a tire that's wider. So,
if you're concerned about it clearing the fender, because to Oscar's point, that usage of the middle number started happening in some tire manufacturers because of the racetrack. So the idea was it was a way that they could sneak a wider tire on with the same sidewall. So they could not hit the inside of the fender or not hit the front of the swing arm. And you guys that do vintage choppers and stuff we all know that if you try to use that Harley Davidson 16-inch rear wheel and stuff that on the back of your cool old vintage Honda chopper or BSA chopper or whatever, everyone does that. Everybody steals a 16-inch Sportster wheel and stuffs it on the back of their chopper or whatever it is.
Victory Hammer 8-ball.
No,
it's not actually even a bad move on I had one on a CB750.
Yeah.
And with the right tire on it, it's actually a stronger wheel.
Yes.
And because I had a couple CB750s that I tore the spokes out of, trying to do drunken burnouts. And with my wife on the back. And so that 16-inch Harley wheel with the right tire on it looks really nice and is a sturdier wheel.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And that's a big thing about, there's a reason that happened. There's a reason people went to that and started doing that as a technique was to steal the Harley Davidson wheel and stick it on the back of the Japanese bike. Because, if you look at those spokes on the back of that Harley Davidson 16-inch wheel, those spokes are they're only this long.
Yeah.
For the first thing, they're shorter than hell, but they're also thick as my pinky, and they're going to be stout. If you bend one of those, well done, man. You've earned it. That's vicious. So that's the biggest thing. So the reason this is important and why I'm bringing this up is I was looking at a bike today, a customer's bike, and when the bike is sitting on the stand and it's being run out, it's absolutely fine. The clearance is there. But when you put weight and you load that bike up, and that tire squashes out a little bit, right? So the squash on the bottom has an effect on the top. And this is what's really weird. So the bottom of the tire flattens out all the time, whereas the top of the tire doesn't. That air's got to go somewhere, and it gets pregnant on the top. And where it gets pregnant is the part where it runs under the fender. And here's the weirdest thing, that if you try to put a piece of metal and a piece of rubber in the same spot, it violently stops rotating. But it gets really hot and weird first. So the performance of this thing, as the guy was saying, is it starts good and it goes great, but then it'll stall out. So sometimes it'll stall out when I'm trying to get going, or sometimes it'll stall out when I'm coming up to a light, or sometimes it'll stall out in general. Well, the problem is I looked at his tire And he had this beautiful, like 1.5 inch, 2 inch wear stripe up the middle that made you think he was just doing burnouts all day long. He wasn't doing any burnouts. It was just that when he put his American cheese-powered butt on that motorcycle, it changed the shape of the top of that tire. Not the bottom of the tire. The bottom of the tire is flat as a pancake. But the top of the tire got real tall. And that's what started rubbing on the inside of that fender. And I looked up inside, and it was like, yeah, the inside of the fender was just polished. It was perfectly beautiful. Downside, though, yeah, when he rides for a little while, that heat builds up. That creates a lot more friction. So that's one of those things. I did look it up, and like his motorcycle from the factory was meant to have a 375 on the back. So that'd be a really hard target to hit. So for a 375, you'd probably want to have like a 90-90, like a 90-90, like 90 wide, 90 high. And that's a skinny tire.
So if you don't know, so say you have a bike and you don't know, is there a safe way to kind of figure it out?
Yeah, there is. And I'm glad that you brought that up. The most important dimension forever is going to be the relationship between the inside of the fender liner and the swing arm, both the width of the swing arm, but more importantly, the front of the swing arm, where the tire passes.
You'll see it going in. Like if you're trying to put the tire onto the swing arm, that's going to be an obvious hit.
Absolutely.
That's going to be a hard one to see.
Would it be a general rule of thumb to say that you never want your aspect ratio to be bigger than your width? So you would never want a 100-100. You always would want to stick with like a 180 or a 170 or something. You know what I mean? If your aspect ratio is at least 10 to 20, you know what I mean? Because the width is always, it's always going to be narrow enough. And as long as you don't go with too high of an aspect ratio, it shouldn't be too high.
Well, I mean, but historically speaking, there is a place in the universe for the 90-90. Yeah. There is a place in the universe for the 100-100. I mean, I've used those tires on the front of a lot of different motorcycles in the past. A lot of vintage motorcycles that did have a taller sidewall. And the biggest problem is that it's not like having a short sidewall. Like today, modern people with their cars, they all want the shortest sidewall possible. Like it looks like a Band-Aid wrapped around the rim of the tire. Low
profile.
Low profile, right? But that's really not the best thing in every application, especially not in a motorcycle. If the motorcycle came from the factory designed to have, 3 inches of sidewall, okay, putting it down to 2 inches or 1 inch of sidewall, now you're losing cornering clearance.
Yeah.
You're lowering the chassis of the motorcycle.
And you're also rideability.
How quickly it turns.
Well, you can literally be riding on the edge of your rim when you're turning. Because you don't have enough sidewall.
Absolutely.
And like the comfort of it, like unbelievably, just like 10 millimeters. Like if you go from like a 135 to a 125, you're stiffening your ride probably more than your shocks can compensate at that point. Like it's crazy.
Well, and the last thing I want to bring up is it's a disclaimer, because if I didn't say this, some safety Nazi out in the audience would be like, so I'm going to say it. Be aware that if you're running a vintage motorcycle and your rim, your DID rim or whatever brand of rim you have on your bike is, let's say your rim is 2.25 inches wide. It'll be stamped on the rim. For most vintage bikes, it'll say like 18 by 225. So that is actually an inch measurement, the 18, and the 225 is also an inch measurement. But if you're doing an 18 by 225 and you sneak a 150 on there, like a modern 150 metric wide tire on there, what's going to happen is that tire is going to get this weirdo pattern. Like, because the sides of the tire are in at such a steep angle to get into where that bead is grabbed, you'll end up with a tire that behaves in an incredibly weird fashion, and the bike's handling will go to crap teetering on dangerous.
It goes back to what we said before. The guys in the white lab coat designed the bike to have a certain size tire. Absolutely. And you can put a bigger tire on, you think you're getting a better contact patch, or you're doing that, or it looks cooler, but it's not as stable as the right size tire for the right size rim.
Yeah. And you may get more contact patch, but it's going to be a weirder contact patch. It's not going to be there for you.
Can I ask you then what your recommendation is as far as straying from the manufacturer size recommendation? Like, are you saying one size up or one size down. You're going to be in a good contact patch range. You're not going to, be on your rim. You're going to be comfortable on your ride, or is this something that you just stick with it?
My personal rule of thumb for when I'm charging people money to work on their bike is 1. So like if you came in with a 120, I'm going to say that I will be willing to do a 130 as long as I measure it out on the swing arm and I measure it out on the front to back as well. And I'll usually be okay with a +1 or a -1 to suit the needs of the rider as long as I don't see anything weird in the process. Okay. That's where I feel comfortable for somebody I'm charging money. If it's my own shit, I have gotten freaky and weird with, some like weird 600cc VLX. And I'm like, the 150 is what they call for, but the 180 looks really sexy. So let's get a 180 in there. And I'm just going to be careful not to lean it over too hard.
If we want to get some good comments going and just get some people excited about this, we should just talk about putting car tires on motorcycles. Dark Side never drives anybody out of the woodwork to say anything about that.
Well, I think the other thing that you have to look at too is you didn't discuss bias ply versus radial technology, because I'm sure that under pressure and under load and heat, a bias ply may not deform as much because the sidewalls are way hard. I mean, it's a different structure, but the sidewalls are stiffer on a bias ply. So you may not get that bulge, and you may not get that bulge on the bottom and then bulge on the top. So the flat on the bottom and the bulge on the top. So
can you say bulge again?
Bulge, 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 bulge.
Does anybody know why they still use bias ply tires, even though radial tire technology is clearly superior in every way? Does anybody understand why?
Well, they're used on trailer tires for load.
What's that?
It's a lot of bias ply tires are used for trailer tires because the sidewall's way stiffer than they use it because it can carry a load in it. I mean, I would imagine that under a failure, you're not going to totally collapse.
Yeah, it won't lose the bead when you're really pressing down with a whole bunch of weight.
Right.
As likely.
That's exactly it. I mean, radial tires are safer in so much as if you puncture a radial tire, a tubeless tire, it's going to take a lot longer for that air to come out. It's not going to be a sudden death incident. And radial tires do give you the ability to run a shorter sidewall with a wider footprint, which could be safer or could give you enhanced performance characteristics over a biased ply. But a biased ply is literally just a two different directions of a nylon carcass.
It's a bias.
Exactly. Yes, that's what we do for bias ply. That's bias ply. Mm-hmm. But when we talk about radials, all the old kids in the room can remember the Firestone 721. 7 cords wrapped by 2 or surrounded by 1. It's like there was this idea of more than just a 90-degree opposite axis in making a tire carcass. The idea was that you could get freaky and end up with something that was wider than it was high. And the reason that a lot of motorcycles, especially big, fat, chunky cruiser bikes, will come with bias ply tires is because they are better at holding a giant fucking heavy weight. And so when you see a motorcycle come into your shop, or if you're working on a bike or you've bought a bike, and it's a big, fat, chunky bike, but it's got radial tires on it, believe it or not, that thing may handle better with bias ply, weirdo, chubby tires on it, just because that's the way that bike is engineered to work. And I see that a lot. We have a lot of customers that have accidentally purchased radial tires for their cruiser bikes when they should have purchased bias ply tires. And the weight rating is...
So can you give... So, for example, what weight are you thinking of when you're talking about a cruiser? Mm-hmm. Are you talking about like the 883 weight and up?
Yeah, so what I would be talking about would be something like, let's get into the FLH family of motorcycles. Big, heavy bikes with big, fat fenders designed to be ridden by big people from Wisconsin that eat a lot of carbohydrates, right? Yeah. So when we think about these motorcycles, we're thinking about a motorcycle that would have a 500-pound load on it. Now, I know John's had some 500-pound loads, but we're talking about a 500 pound load on the motorcycle. That's it. So so
talking about John's Janus now.
It has the capacity for a 500 pound load.
Easy.
When you're getting into that, if you look at the weight capacity, and really GVWR, really gross vehicle weight rating, is just what they say the bike can be as a unit, a big unit.
Yes.
They say that the bike can be a 400 pound bike with a 400 pound weight capacity is an 800 GVR.
Yes.
And if you're not sure, look at the tag on the side of your motorcycle. And if it says your GVWR is 700 pounds, and you crack out the bathroom scale and you weigh your bike, and your bike weighs 400 pounds, then you can put 300 pounds on it, right? But if you're going to be going above that, I would say if you're anywhere over 400 pounds, you ought to be thinking about radial tires, bias ply tires. And most of the cruisers that do this will spec bias ply tires.
Hello?
So I think that I just want to emphasize those numbers because a lot of people that I ride with, even though they've ridden for years and years, they're not aware of the difference between the weight of their motorcycle and the capacity of their motorcycle. And I myself, when I first started riding, I had a metric cruiser that was a 250, and its GV whatever weight. I found out that the motorcycle rode very, very different as I was going on a camping trip, fully loaded down Highway 1 and taking these curves. It just handled like shit, and I thought I had broken my bike. But then once I took off a bunch of my gear, my camping stuff, it handled again much better. So like that's a real life experience of recognizing the significance of that other number of your bike.
So ages ago, I used to have an Interceptor. So I had a 1987 Interceptor, and I loved the bike. I really did. But what I found out the hard way was on a very long trip to Alaska. What I had realized was that the 87 Interceptor really wasn't designed to carry 400 pounds of stuff, right? So in retrospect, when I looked at the tag that said GVWR, gross vehicle weight rating, which due to the Department of Transportation and HTSA, it's required by law that all vehicles have that somewhere on it that say what the gross vehicle weight rating is. If you subtract the weight of the actual vehicle, what's left is what you're allowed to put on it. And now granted, engineers and lawyers, plus or minus 25%, who cares? Year of a total eclipse or not, it doesn't really change. But what I had found out was that on that particular trip with one human being on it, and at the time I was a sexy 185 pounds, but I had still managed to have well over 150 pounds of shit with me. And so consequently, the bike didn't handle worth a shit. It handled very poorly, like Bex was saying. So every motorcycle will have a different weight capacity. I can point you to different, like she was saying with the 250cc bikes, that may only have a 200-pound capacity, and that's why they don't have passenger pegs on the back. And that's why they don't have a passenger seat on the back.
I basically can't put anything on a bike if I'm riding it.
No. Well, I know bikes right now that if I were to gain 20 pounds, I wouldn't be allowed to ride them anymore.
Yeah, well.
So on the flip side of that, I'm smaller. Can I get away with a higher aspect ratio? Just as an example, flip side, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It actually does. And if you know that you're not going to be putting the stresses on the bike, so
like my 6'5", 200 big, massive pound box on the back of my motorcycle. That was an adventure.
Don't come here telling us about your box. We don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, I thought you were saying they were 200 pounds. Like bullshit.
It was, yeah.
I love that.
There's fair and there's unfair. Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, there's things you could do. Say you put a tire that's a smidge too big and you're rubbing every time you hit a bump. Well, maybe you can turn up the preload on your shocks, or, you can make some minor adjustments. Or if it's a custom bike and it's hitting, cut, paste, weld,
Cut, paste, weld, repeat. That's it. Yeah.
You guys kind of brought up something that a lot
Don't change the tire, change the bike.
Well, that might just change the engineer's established gross vehicle weight ratio.
That's absolutely.
All you have to do is just weld gussets in everywhere, and you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Can't you just bolt it? Didn't you have a bike that somebody just...
All you need to do is make it a rigid. The answer for everything is a straight swing arm and a rigid suspension. That's it.
Take that to Alaska.
And it'll never rub anything.
Never rub anything.
But
except you'd be rubbing on the girls.
You'll rub your ass raw. So
I bet we could put 1,000 pounds in Chris's Janus.
Oh, yeah. Because Chris's Janus is a rigid.
It's a very solid Janus.
It is. I've ridden it.
Springs are in the actual seats.
You know what? Actually,
go ahead, Bex, jump in here.
You want Vex to jump in your Janus? Really? I mean,
that being said,
she's missing all the jocularity.
Yeah.
Oh.
Bex is talking about her bike, which was a 250. Now, what did you have? Did you have a Rebel, or what were you on?
Oh, close. I had a GZ 250, a little Suzuki, the Marauder. So basically a Rebel, but Suzuki.
Oh, you had the Marauder. You had the GZ.
I had the GZ 250.
Did you have the anal? Did you have the anal Marauder?
Right, I did.
The GZ 250 is the Suzuki 250 Hydroglide.
Only after use.
Yes. It's the Suzuki FLH 250. But a good example, like that motorcycle in particular, is it's a favorite of the motorcycle instruction programs. Because if you have people who come in that are not long of leg, the GZ 250 is awesome to get them onto. It's an easy bike to ride. Whereas the Rebel 250 has got like the chopper front end, the big 21-inch wheel, and the long forky forks. The GZ 250 has a normal sized front wheel that matches the one on the back, and it has normal human forks, like normal human geometry. So GZ 250 is a really good bike to ride.
Thank you. And it was so easy for. I have very long legs for my height, and it was so easy to ride. Her name became Forest Kitten because I would take her on the fire roads out here. Because she was just so light, and I used to mountain bike like very aggressively, and so it was just like, oh my god, uphill is amazing. I could go over logs, and if I got stuck, I just kind of pick it up and throttle it, and I'd get out of it. So
what you're saying is it was an adventure cruiser.
Yes. As every bike can be an adventure bike.
The adventure cruiser segment of the market is very much overlooked.
I still think you're better off with a TU 250, though.
Anything's an adventure bike if you're bold enough.
That's right.
Yeah, I love that facet of your guys' talks.
Oh, yeah. To put it in perspective, there's no doubt that Chris's Janus could take a bigger load than Bex's GZ 250.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with that.
Hey.
Could you imagine Chris's Janus with a big load on a muddy road?
It might just blend.
Yeah, well, because his Janus is a rigid.
Oh.
Yeah.
He would perform well.
That's the thing about rigids. So the thing about rigids is they'll take a tremendous load, but
it'll take a beating.
Be a little sloppy.
After a while, but it'll take it.
Because you can fight a lot of problems with the air pressure. So our friend Bagel has ridden Vespas all over the world. I mean, literally, actually all over the world. And one of the best conversations I ever had with Bagel years ago was we talked about taking something as mundane as a Vespa 250, a Vespa GS 250, an automatic transmission scooter with very small 12-inch wheels. Again, Bex, 12 inches. Okay?
Yes, absolutely.
So these 12-inch wheels, you wouldn't think that would be the thing you'd want to use for going extremely long distances, a lot of RPMs with a big load. And the manufacturer of the vehicle says that the normal air pressure for that bike should be around 35 or 36 PSI on the back and around 29 in the front due to loading and maintaining a contact patch that's somewhat equal. The pressure in the front is less than the pressure in the back due to the mass of the, let me see.
Weight distribution.
The class of the lass is proportionate to the mass of the ass. That's how it works. So the back of a Vespa has more mass.
Dank-a-dank?
Yes. So the back of a Vespa has got a nice mass, and that's where the motor is too. So the back needs more air pressure to support it. And then you take one bagel, and bagel used to be bigger. So bagel used to be a bigger bagel. So bagel was a full extra large bagel. He's not an extra large bagel anymore, but he was an extra large bagel. And then he had all of his gear for a cross-country trip and extra gasoline on the back of this Vespa at 75 to 80 miles per hour. And what he figured out was that he could go above the manufacturer's recommended air pressure for the tire. And if he went above the manufacturer's recommended air pressure for the tire, the bike would handle better and he would get a longer life out of the tire as well.
Probably stayed cooler too, right?
Yeah, it's exactly.
The tire stayed cooler.
The tire temperature stays lower if you reduce the amount of flex that occurs every time the bottom of the tire becomes the top of the tire. The bottom of the tire is very tight and squat. The top of the tire is very opened up. Right. And if that tire does that 1,800 times a minute, it's tall, short, tall, short, tall, short, tall, short, and that creates a lot of heat. So if you can minimize how tall and how short it gets, the variance between the two, the tire will run cooler. So
you also increase the diameter of the tire itself in the contact patch when you have a higher air pressure. And just to clarify, I'm curious, for my clarity, you're talking about the manufacturer spec of the tire manufacturer, or of the scooter or motorbike, basically?
Thank you for clarifying. When I talk about the manufacturer's pressure, what I'm talking about is the vehicle manufacturer's pressure. So the tire will have a maximum pressure set on the side of the tire. It'll say on the side of the tire what the maximum pressure is. And that would be the pressure that you should never exceed. The pressure on the motorcycle itself is that manufacturer saying with the proper tires on that bike, the pressure that they recommend that you run to give you the best performance. Now, any of you guys who ride on the racetrack, you'll know that the manufacturer might say to put 32 PSI in the front. I run 27. It gives me a little bit of a better footprint when I'm doing stupid stuff. So guys that want more adhesion for bad decisions will run the pressure a little bit lower. Guys who want the tire to give them an extra gear ratio, like instead of a 6-speed, now they've got a 7-speed on long trips, might put a little extra air in the back of the tire. And that the effect of that is on a long trip, it will make less revolutions per minute, only a couple, but a couple is all that matters when you're doing 5,000 miles in a trip. So yeah, that's a technique, is adding a few PSI. Now there are charts you can find that say, okay, if you're going to add this much luggage, add this much PSI and you'll be okay. Because remember, the owner's manual is going to be lawyer proof. It's going to be like, this is safe. A little high, a little low, that's up to you and what you're comfortable with. But tires, the proper selection of tires and the understanding of their use is really, really important. And today I got to tell a guy who just bought brand new tires that he made a huge mistake and had to rebuy them. Okay. So he bought tires that don't work on his motorcycle and they're going to cause him problems. And he's going to have to rebuy those tires.
Can that be like a segue into knowing what kind of tire you have, whether you are riding on a tubeless or a tubed tire, for example? I had a very interesting, long, greasy, hot, sweaty boys didn't have tools. I'm glad I did experience at a rally where the gentleman on a very nice bike didn't know that he had a tubed tire, and to use a plug on a tubed tire is futile.
Well, now you have two problems. You had one problem.
I mean, you could get really, really lucky and hit it just right.
I was hoping for. So we look for data. On the outside of the tire itself, it says tubeless.
Right. Yeah.
So we were hoping.
Yeah. So outside of the tire, if the tire says tubeless, that means the tire can be used for tubeless, no tube, or with a tube. All tires are tube tires, including the tires on your car out in the driveway.
Could be. Mm-hmm.
Because if
all
your
chaps are pantless. I mean, what's your thing? All chaps?
chaps are assless, or else they'd be pants. So yeah, an inner tube can go inside of virtually any tire that normally would hold air, because as Chris Smith taught me, tires are what?
Round.
Chris Smith isn't paying attention. I just gave him.
No. I've forgotten. What are they? What's the saying?
They were. Chris Smith once told me tires are just cylinders of air.
Yes.
And I was like, that's remarkably prescient.
So also touch, if you're riding with tubeless tires that actually have no tube,
right,
is it even beneficial to carry a tube with you for the size of the tire? Say you get a flat, it's not, I mean, you could probably put it in there, right?
It's not going to kill you.
Good.
Right. It's not going to kill you.
I probably would carry a plug kit before I did that. It would be a lot easier.
Because the plug kit's the size of a cigarette pack.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Oh, I know. And the little, CO2.
I wonder what would happen if you plugged Chris Smith's anus.
Here we go.
No, you guys are right. My new car, like not new, but the 2017, it doesn't have a spare tire. It just comes with a plug kit and an inflator in the back. That's it.
I'd rather have that in some cases. It's quicker. I mean, I could jack a cut. If you have a compressor, does it give you CO2 cartridges or anything?
No, it's a pretty standard. I mean, it's a pretty beefy little compressor, though. It'll take a tire from flat to full in like 6 minutes. But I don't know how you pop the bead. If you pop the bead, I don't think you could do it.
Then you just got to blow it up with some gas and.
Yeah. Get some wolf juice. Yeah.
I sent Cinch a picture. I want if you could put that up. That'll make you feel a little warmer.
Oh.
This is what it's like here now.
Sorry, I am such a, I did come to California from Hawaii, and I was even more snuggly buggly with like 3 layers of clothing in 50-degree weather. So I don't know. Yeah,
that gives you an idea of what it's like here now.
Man.
That looks like about 2.5 inches of partly cloudy.
You put 7 inches of partly cloudy.
We're shoveling sunshine here.
Oscar.
That's what I always tell my Santa Cruz friends. Tell all my Santa Cruz people, I'm like, nobody ever died shoveling sunshine.
No. I did live in Truckee, so that's the coldest place in California.
Yeah. Every time I see the sign for Truckee, for some reason, okay, I live in a town. The name of my town is arguably one of the most like porn set names of any town ever made, because I live in Avon Lake. Mm-hmm. And I've been told by many people that Avon Lake sounds like the name of a town from a cheesy 80s romance now, right?
Skinamax.
Avon Lake.
Skinamax.
And it's
I haven't heard that in fucking ages.
Like Sheffield on Trent or something.
Where you have to like tune in and just kind of get it between the fuzzies.
Yes. This week on Avon Lake. Right?
Versus Janus.
Bex was talking about back in the day when you had the cable box that only had 2 channels.
Yep.
At 11:30, it switched to kind of racy movies. As a 10-year-old kid, you'd have to go and switch back and forth. And you might get a nipple.
After pretending you're asleep.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly.
You might get a slight nipple on one of the waves of the broken TV.
Totally. I spent hours sitting there waiting. Just please come in a little bit. I'm almost ready. I'm almost there.
No, but if you had an old click tuner television, if you had a proper click tuner television, you could, if you had the cable box that had the brown remote with the cord on it that went like a 30-foot cord to the TV, You could put it on Skinamax, and then you could go up to the TV and turn the micro adjuster, the fine adjuster on the VHF.
How do you know this?
You could straighten out the wiggle lines, and you could just barely make out a nipple.
Good enough for me.
Good enough for me. That's all I need.
The old cable boxes, you could just take them apart, and one of the wires you skinned and put in like a resistor, and you can get the channel. You can get the like HBO or Showtime.
So I actually didn't even grow up with a cable box. It was just how much more tinfoil you put on the ears and how really good dexterity you had on the fine tuning on the knob.
Yep. Yeah, that's how you could tell the kids from the 80s.
You have to know how to work the knob.
Every once in a while.
You're saying they're good at playing with their knobs?
Yes.
We're practiced.
Yeah, we had an antenna as big as our house with a rototenna. And that was really like you were really doing it with a rototenna. You could dial it in on the TV, and it had a motor, and your antenna would change direction.
Oh yeah, I forgot about those.
Yeah.
I love the rototenna. When we moved into this house, there was a rototenna on the roof, and the box was this ridiculously giant plastic box with a giant knob on it. A knob that you'd only expect to be from a 60s sci-fi movie. And when you turned the knob, there were stickers on it that said, Toronto, Canada. Mansfield. And so you were literally dialing in different parts of your very small universe.
Yep.
Come into your house. Yeah.
That's what we did too, because now you can pick up 80 channels anyway.
Yeah.
It's digital. But the old days, you had to change it to like Detroit. Like you'd have to steer it towards Detroit or steer it towards Seven Hills or wherever to get. And then you'd get like Ernest Angley in like stereo.
That's what they call a Yagi antenna. It's a directional antenna, and that's why it has the things pointing. It's so you can direct it. And I actually had a big conversation with a technical director at Channel 8 because you can't get 8 and 19 are hard to get in Cleveland, but that's because they're Canadian TV stations that are stepping on our signal. And when you have two signals that bounce into each other, they cancel each other out. So there's a signal coming across the lake that fucks us out. Even though we're right here, we can't get it.
Well, they can only cancel each other out if they're exactly the same wavelength, but they can interfere.
Right.
Yeah.
So
they make one station that's far more interesting.
Right. I had a friend whose parents were pretty lackadaisical, and we'd always have sleepovers at his house because we could get away with everything, right? So they had like a free night on Cinemax or something one day. And so we're like, sweet, so we all pile in and we put it on. And it kind of destroyed my whole life. I was 8, and I remember this to this day. It was a movie called Cry Uncle. And it was like this detective dude, and he was walking around trying to find something. And he walks in this room, and there's like a dead hooker. And he's like, she's still warm. And he ends up banging the dead hooker. And I was 8, and I'm going, oh. Okay.
Are you allowed to do that?
Is that the way this works? I didn't know that this was a thing. And so, yeah, the whole cable thing has ruined my life, basically. Thank you.
So we go from Ernest Angley to the detective.
Why, Uncle? You literally went from Ernest Angley's Tower of Power to necrophilia, teenage necrophilia on Skinamax.
Yeah.
She's still got one more round left in her.
No, don't do that. No,
that was before GTA, so I mean it's
yeah.
I gave you guys some homework tonight.
Well, wait a minute. Who is the predecessor to Ernest Angley? Locally,
Robert Schuller. I'm trying to think of who would have been the predecessor. An Ohio-based religious icon,
Rex
Humbard.
Rex Humbard, and the Cathedral of Tomorrow.
Why did they ever finish it? That thing is still there. That 250-foot tall tower that the church was supposed to be plopped on is just sitting there in Cuyahoga Falls. They never finished it.
No.
Maybe it should be the new home of Cleveland Moto.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Moto Tower.
You could buy the Tower of Power. You could buy that because it has been sold. It's changed hands twice quite cheaply. And underneath the Tower of Power is a really big building. I wish Nick was here. He could tell us all about it. But my family and I, we used to go down there for buffets, and we would eat buffets at the Tower of Power and pretend to be God-fearing Christians so we could get the sweet-ass buffet. And it was rad. But as you were waiting in line for the buffet, there were all these little dioramas that, as you were waiting in line to get into the buffet, would tell you the story of how, like, Jesus and, they were all cool little model sets. And as a kid, I was big into like HO trains and stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is really cool. This is interesting. And it kept kids quiet while they were waiting for their fish sticks.
I thought the buffet only had loaves and fishes.
So that was exactly it. Right. Yeah,
hey, we're running low.
I like this story much better than the one I left.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Grumpy Sure Guy, give us an update on the CB500 since
you have actually, I'm curious.
Background.
I'm curious.
What's going on with
that? Can I ask Phil and Grumpy Sure Guy? I was curious about the tire situation because you have a 1971 CB500 that probably has original tires, and you're talking about trying to replace them, or are you going to just ride it and just keep it upright and not go around corners, or
I think you should have to ride it just like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have a CB175 with pretty much the original tires, and once they get to a certain age, they turn into stone, so you never have to replace them.
You just can't turn at high speed. So.
Just can't turn.
See, I'm the only one here that doesn't ride fast, and I don't take chances.
And you're in Ohio, which is not Santa Cruz Mountains. It's not California curves.
No, we've gone to Southern Ohio where it probably rivals.
We were riding roads that, like 555 is pretty twisty and scary when you're coming over like 92 blind hills. So
yeah.
555 has 463 turns in 63 miles, and 70% of them are blind. So like you go into it and it like you're going uphill, you can't see where you're going, and then it goes somewhere.
But you have so how when I came to Cleveland and for AMA Vintage Days, how I desire, like, we went through the southern-ish area so that we could actually get some non-straight roads. Yep. And the fields are beautiful, though, so you can see ahead. If you look far enough ahead, you're like, oh, that's the road, because there's pretty much no other road. And you're like, okay, that's about the corner that I'm going to be taking. So you can, if you, maybe just because I'm a California rider, like, yeah.
Watch the top of the telephone poles. So if you watch the top of the telephone poles, you'll see where the road goes ahead of you.
Right.
No?
The problem is you get behind a Tesla driver with an orbital lobotomy, and he's driving 2 miles an hour.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So you can't
He's
pass.
not driving, and there are plenty of them. Like my daily commute, I do 17, and then I do some Bay Area freeways, and about every fifth car in the carpool lane is a Tesla, and every other fifth car is a Prius. Yeah. So you're just like, but the Teslas, man, they don't move over because they have a some kind of a sensor that positions you dead on between the lanes. So when they're just drinking their coffee, watching their Netflix, driving to work at like 7 o'clock in the morning, giving a fly fuck of nothing else, you're just like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
That's when you how to disrupt that. Like in some of those cars, they have the sensors, and what I like to do is I get my front wheel next to the lane sensor and I push them over into the rumble strips.
So what I'll do is I stick my leg out and I push it up into my left leg. And so I'm splitting between 1 and 2, and I stick my left leg out, and it fucks the sensor up. So then they actually move over.
Oh, really? Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, as long as you can figure that out, that's what you want to do. Because fuck those people.
I wonder
those people.
If you could put something. I wonder if you could put something like those old school curb scratchers where they had the little thing that stuck out that would just like interfere with their fucking sensors.
Yeah.
You'd have to have a pretty large one. And most of my commuting I did on my Triumph Sprint ST with full cases, whether I had shit in them or not, because it was extra protection. and it was just made my little load wider. So it was like, oh yeah, and then just kind of flop my leg out there, stand up, wave.
Well, what if you could use some type of parabolic shape on the back of the bike so that it appears that you're closer. Like when they get behind you, then it appears that they're closer and it forces them back because it's concentrating the signal.
Put a Fresnel lens on the back of your bike.
Yeah, or something to change the signal that they're sending out. They're probably using radar, right? I mean, I would imagine
maybe just even a simple aluminum windmill would work.
I'm going to tell you, I've had remarkably good effect on even non-self-driving cars. Horror of horrors, there are cars that don't drive themselves. And that I've had a remarkable effect that when I'm riding my motorbike, and if I find they're not paying attention, if I just do them the courtesy of folding in their side view mirror, it gets their attention way fast. And the funny thing is, like, they're angry, but they don't pursue you because you've disabled their vehicle by folding in their side view mirror, and they really don't know how to deal with it. So they're running along at diminished capacity, but so they don't actually pursue you, but they get very angry. But all you've done is move their mirror in. So, you know, it's not like the old days.
They're scared.
Oh, that's right, Carl.
Yeah.
They do, yeah. And I like to do that with my feet.
Yeah. So, again, Bex, though, made the mistake of bringing up tires again. Does anybody have that one friend that just doesn't pay attention when you give them even a good solid word of advice, like something really, really critical, like, you just bought a motorcycle and it has tires on it from 1975. Yeah. Before you go to Chicago on your motorcycle and go to Moto Blot, you know, like the big, you know, Cafe Racer weekend in Chicago and Milwaukee, maybe you should change those tires from 1975.
They're still good.
James is an idiot. So James rode his CB400F Super Sport, like virtually brand new, didn't even change the spark plugs from 1975. And this isn't 25 years ago. This is like 5 years ago.
That was the one I helped him get, the $300 one.
A $300
bike.
He didn't do anything to it, and it was $300.
He brought it to Johnny Mac's garage, and I got it running for him, and that's as much as it ever happened.
That's it. And then he rode it to Chicago and then Milwaukee, like the very next day, on the tires that God put on it in 1975 in Japan.
But he's still here. He did fine. No problems, right?
And he rode there with dudes on CB750s and 900s and everything else. And he's on a 400 that happens to be like, you know, God's most lying 6-speed.
Oh my gosh. So the friction of keeping up with bigger bikes too.
And he did it. And he made it because luck favors the stupid. And he did the trip and he made it back. And then one night, you know, we were all out in the world doing our thing and having a good time. And some of us were having a better time than others. And I get a phone call at like 3:00 in the morning that says, if you can get here in 30 minutes and pick up your employee and his motorcycle, he won't go to jail. Seems fair. I was like, well, I'm 45 minutes away. I'll be there in 25. And I got there and I had to talk to a frickin', you know, state park ranger with the giant Napoleon complex, you know, man this big, gun this big. And had to talk to this guy about not arresting James because he sprayed his CB400 out across like 2 lanes, 1 curb, 1 parking lot and everything. And James was wearing like all the safety gear of like nylon soccer shorts and like a nylon soccer jersey that probably said Dropkick Murphys on it or something. And I picked him up and he was like road rash. And got him home.
At least he didn't have a boot print on his face.
Again. Yeah.
This time.
Different story.
He's a true story. but yeah, I mean, that's the example. Like, so he tried to corner those tires over by the wastewater treatment plant by Whiskey Island, and there was no, as soon as you get them over, that's when concrete, let's go. You know, that's when.
Just pretty soft.
Yeah. So that's when the wooden tires become a real problem.
Yeah, because it's rigid.
Yeah,
it doesn't. It's crazy as fuck. Excuse me, language, but once you hit that little part, I mean, I learned. I didn't know motorcycles, and I get on this thing, and it was like 12 psi the next day when I checked it out, and it was crazy scary. But you have the contact patch, and it's all flat, and then as soon as you turn a little bit and you get past that, it's just. I mean, you lose your ass, and your Janus turns blue, and you're just like, whoa. All right, I stayed up on that one.
What we all say perfectly good until it's not.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic until it's not. And then it's bad real fast.
Did he listen after that?
What's that?
Has he listened after that? Was it a learning experience?
Yeah. I mean,
he fucking sold the bike, made a good bit of money, and I didn't get a kickback.
He sold the bike, and he did make a fucking, because it was a CB400F. He didn't put fresh tires on it. He sold the bike away, and then he got a new V7. He got a Moto Guzzi V7 that came with good tires on it.
Damn, nice.
Phil, you know, I always put new tires on my bikes. I mean, I like having new tires on my bike, so I am going to replace the tires on that 500. But the problem is that there's such a variance between tires, how sticky tires are just between brand new tires. So you go from that zero with those Rosa
Corsas.
Yeah, those things are fantastic. And then you go to something new, like just say like a Metzler 880. I mean, there's a big difference between your Metzler 880 and those Rosas.
Well, I mean, let's qualify that and say that a Metzler 880 is a tire from the early 80s.
Right, but I'm saying if
everybody knows the Metzler 880.
The rubber and the material technology of that of the 80s.
So I actually have a pair of those upstairs just waiting to go on a bike. They're brand new.
Yeah.
They still have the tits on them.
Yeah. They're brand new, but they're 40 years old.
Yeah, if you want to put those on your 500, Grumpy Store guy, you're more than welcome.
And
they'll never wear out.
Honestly, I've ridden with Steve. He's safe.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, what do we know? Anybody who rides vintage motorcycles knows that if you want a tire for your bike, Metzler, the Metzler ME880 has been around forever. It was the first Chevron-based, sexy, cool rain tire that they made, and they've never stopped making them. I mean, it's bizarre, but I watched that tire go from being cutting-edge technology to being the best evidence ever of an old white man. Is the Metzler ME880? That's
I resemble
Did he still get it white walls?
I'm certain of it, but you can only buy it from guys who sell Amsoil.
Man, you're killing me, Phil. You're killing me.
Hey, he gave you props that you don't need to be to fretted over. That you can ride, whether it's a old ancient wooden wheel or not. So
I do get a little crazy on the Zero, though. I must say that's the only bike that I really like. I split lanes. I just I turn into.
They're so fun.
I'm not. So.
They are fun. They're just stupid fun.
They're giggle machines. That's for sure.
So raise your hand if you did your homework for the podcast today. All right, good. Nice to see. We got some people that did their homework. Oh wait, okay. So there's a big 5-spoke alloy wheel with Metzler 880s on it. That was funny. I didn't know.
That's what's on my ascot, Steve.
So that's got to be an 83, right? No, what is it? 83.
It might be.
Yeah, probably 83.
I'm sorry, I didn't think you could put Metzler 880s on anything that wasn't a BMW.
It's hard to read the number because there's so many cracks in the sidewall.
And all the bearings, all the ball bearings are falling out on top of the tires, so from the headset. And Dave wants to kill me with that bike.
So who would like to volunteer for their homework for the podcast tonight? We asked folks to come up with Christmas presents. Not that they would think about giving to other people, because fuck you. For themselves, like for gifts for us, like, a gift that you might like. So I gave them a bunch of categories. I gave them a gift under $100. I gave them a gift under $5,000, and then I gave them a gift under $25,000. The bonus was a stocking stuffer, which is anything under $20. All right. So would anybody?
We had fun with this in my family.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
I did it with the whole family at the dinner table. Everybody was like, "Oh, all right, it was a good time."
I mean, it's actually a pretty fun exercise. So anybody have a gift?
I like Peggy's pick for the 100 was she wanted a seafood tower. A tower of seafood.
A seafood tower.
A seafood tower.
I'm like,
great idea. That's an excellent idea. Because you know what?
Grandma was just like, give me the money.
I know Piper just wanted the cash, right?
Like, I got my dealer on the corner. Just give me the
Piper
money.
couldn't even imagine what $25,000. $25,000? I would buy a mansion.
Yeah, I thought throwing a $25,000 gift in there would be fun, you know? just to be stupid, you know? So anyone else have $100? Anyone else have $100 gift other than a seafood tower?
Nice set of gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's actually that's something after this I want to talk with you guys about.
Okay.
There's just not that much under $100 as far as motorcycle accessories go.
Yeah.
So under $500, what I would like to have is like an e-bike kit for my mountain bike.
Ooh, that's a good idea. So, and you mean like one of those hub motors that you can put into your bicycle? And
yeah, either a hub or a
bicycle,
or one of the mid drives,
or a whizzer motor.
Don't say whizzer. You're going to attract the old white men.
Well, thinking about that got me thinking about it, adapting one of those hub drives to like one of the small Honda motorcycles and make it a hybrid.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
For $100, you can get heated grips, and those are amazingly brilliant on any machine at any time.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah, the difference between heated grips and not heated grips is a person that walks upright versus a person that plays with their tail all day.
Well, that's my question is, I have these Gerbings, and they have the cords, the one cord that comes to this.
It's too complicated, dude.
Yeah, this is all I have.
Right.
But I don't have anything else, and I'm not buying anything else because these were fucking free.
Right.
So I think I'm going to cut this off.
No.
And just.
Why don't you just buy the other end for it?
That would cost money.
No, I'm gonna.
I forgot who I'm talking to.
I'm gonna save you some money. I'm gonna save you some time. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Look at the tag inside the Gerber and gloves. It'll tell you what the wattage and voltage is. Okay.
Okay.
So look in there and find out what the voltage is, the nominal voltage for those gloves.
Says use 12 volts only.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping for. So 12 volts is your money maker. That's the whole world is 12 volts, right?
Right.
12 volts is what you want. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that fixture off the end using dandy dikes, right? We call them, at my shop, we call them Lizas. And you chop the end off. And then you take that and you put on the SAE connectors. The SAE connectors that we have at my shop, hundreds of them, right?
Make it longer. Don't cut it longer. Almost like
I can splice that much.
Right.
I can splice that much back together.
A USB charger, because now you can do that, right?
Exactly. So
I could use that under my BMW.
If you want to put if you want to put SAE connectors on there, you put SAE connectors on there. The SAE connectors are polarized, so you can't possibly fuck it up too badly. And then your power supply for 12 volts. So 12 volts is actually really super easy to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you can decide whether you want to use something as stupid as like an Amazon $12 battery bank, like a charger that you would use for cell phones and stuff like that. Or you could use a DeWalt drill battery or a Makita drill battery. something you might already have in your world. But here's the crazy thing, is those things are set to run at an optimum voltage of 12 volts. They will run beautifully on 6. So
you can get.
I could get 100 of these, which is a 12-volt battery.
One of those silly little 9-volt batteries and put it in your pocket.
Exactly.
I mean, if you want, if one of the, some old electronics that you have the piece, cut that off, splice it onto your gloves, and then you can put a 9-volt, and it's super light, like you're not fucking around, and it'll go for any of your bikes, right?
But honestly, John's a big guy. You see that thing he's holding in his hand, he could have one of those in each pocket and get away with it.
One for each glove.
Yeah, one for each glove. And they would.
I have my viewpoints and my filters.
So this is a 4 amp hour battery. I wonder how long it will work.
Well, so if you're on those gloves, if that's a 12-volt battery, and it's a 12-volt battery, and those gloves are pulling it probably, if they're super thirsty, they're probably pulling it around 250 watts. So law is going to tell you that battery is going to last for about 8 hours. So
that's good.
So then what about the idea of utilizing the USB to, the thing that is the battery maintainer? So I have one of those, and I have an adapter for USB. And then you can get a USB cord now that's like 20 feet long for nickels. And use that, attach the difference, and your gloves are going to be great.
If you don't have a battery tender lead on your motorcycle, you should put a battery tender lead on your motorcycle, because
so why mess with anything else?
Yeah, the connector at the end of it is an SAE connector. And the only people that make fun of an SAE connector are BMW and Ducati assholes, because they have a slightly different connector, right? But yours is better, I promise you. The SAE connector can be used for anything, and I have them on all of my vehicles because you can plug it.
Is this rip on me tonight? Is it just rip on me all night? Damn soil, BMW asshole.
You're an asshole.
You know what, Steve, Grumpy Sewer Guy, you might appreciate this, because I think you do also appreciate energy efficiency. And what maybe Johnny Mac wants to do too, if you want to go a little more extravagant, is you have your SAE, you have your USB, you have your gloves, but then again, you can do an auxiliary that has the solar panel that also has the USB nowadays, which is, to use Emma's term, cheap as chips nowadays. Like, I literally have a lantern that is about that thick.
Yeah. You're saying that's 12 inches, right?
12 inches. Yeah.
And I never have to charge my lantern.
Right.
And to put that on the front.
Do I have to worry about any kind of polarity?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter which. What?
Well, no, because
polarity is not going to be something
the gloves are DC.
So
the gloves are
it's a resistive load, so there's no diode involved in it.
So polarity doesn't matter.
You won't fuck that up.
Yeah.
So I did this.
I soak my hands in ice water.
Excellent. Do you know what I recommend? A little bit of series and a lot of parallel. That's it.
Yeah.
Put the gloves on first and then do that.
Right.
I'm not going to do that. I hooked it up.
If he puts the gloves
hooked
on
up
first,
to a battery.
Yeah.
Holy shit, they're on fire!
We're burning hands over here. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah. Let's see if they warm up. They're way too small for me. Oh, they're getting warm already.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Why?
Because your supply of amperage coming out of that battery is so much greater than any power controller would have been for those, because it probably would have had a variable power controller on it.
I think they actually make a cord that's not doesn't even have a controller. You can hook it right to your battery, plug it right into these gloves, and let them go full tilt all the time.
So having a friend who has scars all over his body from heated gear that did not have a controller, I highly recommend you regulate your amperage.
Well, you'd have thought maybe I'd have thought about putting a fuse in there somewhere too.
Does he look like a waffle? Does he just look like a circuit board? Does he look like
where all of the heating pads are? There are these scars. So it's like
he's like, I'm into scarification, man. It took me a long time.
I understand, like putting the frog.
Tattoos.
Yeah.
I understand, like putting the frog in the bottle, the thing of water, and turning the heat up, and the frog doesn't realize the heat's going up.
Yeah. That's actually exactly what happens.
He's not a frog.
It's exactly what happens when you're in cold weather.
No. I have a heated blanket. I have a heated mattress pad. When it gets too hot, I'm out.
I feel like the right one's hotter than the left one.
There's a reason for that.
But I thought
maybe you're
left-handed.
Okay, does anybody else have $100 gift other than John's broke-ass gloves?
Actually, I had the question of a few episodes before about the Bluetooth communication stuff, and they're closer on there. I mean, they're not the greatest, but if you're just talking to your passenger, that's kind of
it's still
close enough.
So, my experience with multiple tours with lots and lots of different people that, even just like that was the only time that I've gone riding with them. Babes Ride Out. We have like tours for like the kids Santa drops. We have like the kilt tour and things like that. To avoid the frustration of having your unit not work and function with others, then I recommend you're probably gonna go a little bit above the $100 zone. Okay. Yeah. So the new mesh technology is very, very easy. It's very easy. And then there's Sena to Sena, where you literally just shake the tube. Yep. And some people don't get that, and they don't get the okay, you shake the tube, but you still have to wait for them to connect. Which does, they have to communicate, and then they have to check and then regulate and wavelength. So, but yeah,
that should be
I would say double your budget.
Hey Bex, would you say that if you're gonna use your unit for multiple partners, you should probably spend more than $100?
I would highly recommend going for a quality unit if you're exploring sharing that experience with multiple partners. Yeah,
multiple partners.
Yeah.
Now, if you've taken a load on your Janus and you're trying to contact anybody, is that something?
Well, hopefully you're not sharing that experience with multiple people at the same time, because
that's my concern. Because if you're going to share the load on the Janus, then you might want to be able to communicate about.
That can lead to a prolapse Janus.
You never want that to happen. No.
There is the technology.
Bill, when you performed the service on it, did you give the Janus a colonoscopy?
No, I didn't, because again, I don't recommend that for any Janus that's less than 50 years old.
Okay.
That is a fantastic under $100 gift.
Yes.
And oscilloscope. Those are fantastically helpful.
Horoscope, you mean like the board? Like the little
oscilloscope.
A boroscope.
Boroscope.
Yeah.
The camera one.
You can
camera one.
You can stick it in a hole.
The camera one, and then it broadcasts to a whatever your Bluetooth to.
Right.
Yeah.
Your phone or your computer.
Bluetooth camera. Bluetooth camera is a really good idea.
Super helpful.
You could
that's way under $100.
You can inspect all the crevices of your Janus with it.
You could.
You can get into home veterinary medicine.
Oh, gross.
My wife just had a colonoscopy. The doctor said she had a nice ass. I mean, he said she had a perfectly normal colon, but I took it to mean she had a nice ass.
Well, congrats on both parts.
Yep. Didn't you send an email before and you were talking about the fact that, like you said, after the first inch, it's like it's never been touched or seen?
It's like brand new.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have $100 gift?
No, I don't have 100. No.
I have one.
Just think of all the things you can buy at Harbor Freight for $100.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
You took mine. Mine was a borescope. So, I mean, I want to get a borescope.
Borescope's a great idea. Borescope's fantastic.
You know what? I do have one. So I'm going to be doing my forks on my one GS850 the next couple of weeks, and I bought a tool that goes onto a 3/4 inch drive, but it's a tapered square basically. So it's like a pyramid with the top cut off, and it works with like 90% of forks where you have to shove it down in there, and it grabs the cartridge, and it'll hold the cartridge so you can undo the bottom of the fork and then pull it out.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah, because a lot of people were always like taking like rebar and welding a nut, like 2 nuts to it and shit. And shoving it down there. This thing is like a thing where as long as you have an extension, a 3/4 extension or something, you just pop it on that.
That's a really good idea. That actually is like
for multiple applications.
Right.
Yeah.
That tool is a multi-partner tool. Very approved.
Right. Not sure it
What
works.
about also another thing that I've enjoyed that I didn't realize how just beautiful it functions is the like a hose clamp tool. So instead of fucking around, where it holds it, it clamps it. You can do other stuff going on. Like it's kind of like a third arm that takes charge while you're exploring other things. Yeah.
We call it the stranger.
The stranger.
That's when you turn it around the other way.
Is that your left, Mac?
McElfresh looks like Thanos over there. John's got hot thoughts.
Changing
I'm almost at a point. I don't know how much longer I can keep these on. It's starting to actually get uncomfortably hot.
But you know,
I was waiting for the moment when you had to touch yourself.
I was going to say, like, I really wish I would have had those at every physical to give to the nurse first and have her slide them on for a few minutes and then.
Yeah.
It's chilly in here. Maybe if you warmed up some gloves.
I brought these gloves for you. Please try them on. Just
6 inches.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a story about that.
I'm sure you do.
It was I went to the doctor, and it's like it's freezing cold, and I've got a cinched up sack, and she's trying to dig my nuts out, and I'm like, Jesus, like, can I get a fucking heating pad or something? Like, you're not. I mean, I'm like, it wasn't happening.
You know, it's your fault for going commando, man. That's you shouldn't have done that.
I mean, it would have been fine, but
But I would say for medical inspections, we're still outside. The ladies have to get people going in things and stuff, like that's got to be a whole different experience.
I like the lady urologist I went to. Like normally you have to change into a gown.
Yeah.
She's like, no, just pull your pants down. I'm like, what? Okay. They were nice and warm, nice. That was preferable. I didn't stand there in a gown and have them freeze my nuts off, then have her try to check them. And then she dip checked my ass. She made me climb up on the table with my pants around my ankles. So I'd lay on your side. I'd feel like a little fawn on ice. I'm like, I can't get up on the table. I'm like, why am I laying on the table on my side? And next thing you know, whoa. I'm like, ooh. And then I fell in love with her. I'm like,
but say, John, do you understand how many times you've done that to other people, and now you know what it's
like? When are we going to do this again?
And Chris doesn't chime in over on this one. He's like, huh? No.
Hey, you want to hear a joke?
Can I make my next
Can we have a joke? We haven't had a joke in a while.
So at the nursing home, 2 95-year-old women are sitting in their rockers out on the front porch. And the first lady says to the second lady, so do you ever get horny anymore? Second lady looks at the first one and says, yeah, I sure do. First one says, well, what do you do about it? And the second one says, well, I just suck on a lifesaver. And the first one's sitting there thinking about it. And she says, well, who drives you to the beach?
Oh,
Here's one. Here's a joke, but I'll credit
next joke.
I'll credit this to Liza because she posted it today. What is 50 lesbians and 50 government officials all in a room? What do you call that? 100 people that don't do dick.
Unfortunately.
All right, so a doctor.
And actually, that's not very accurate. Just to let you know.
Right. That's this is true.
All right, here's another one. You want to hear another one? So a guy's driving down the road, and he sees the blue lights in his mirror. He has to pull over, and a cop walks up to the door and says, "Where are you going so fast?" He says, "I got to get to the hospital. I'm a doctor." The guy starts writing out the ticket and says, "Yeah, well, what kind of doctor are you?" He says, "Well, I'm a rectal spreader." Well, what the hell's a rectal spreader? And he says, "Well, I have the people get up on the table on all fours, and I put one finger in. They start moving it around. I put a second finger in, I start pulling it apart. Before you know it, I can get both hands in there and start pulling it apart. Before you know it, I can get that thing 8 feet apart." So the cop hands him the ticket and says, "Well, what do you do with I can get that thing 6 feet apart." And the cop says, "Well, what do you do with a 6-foot asshole?" And the guy says, "Well, I give him a radar gun, I put him on an overpass." Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
I'm also going to use that one tomorrow. Next time I see a cop.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you do with a 6-foot asshole? Well, usually I make him a state trooper.
It's official. I can't wear the gloves. They got too hot.
They got too hot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to recommend for that is drop your voltage. Like go down to like a DeWalt battery or Milwaukee battery.
Well, I could put a switch on it too. You could heat them up and then turn them off and heat them up.
Can't you? What is the multi-volt?
What?
There's a term. Okay, so
Rheostat.
when I fix things,
A potentiometer?
A potentiometer or a rheostat?
Potentiometer. That sounds right.
Yeah.
Latin. Yes. Potentiometer.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So then the potentiometer will get hot instead of your gloves getting hot.
Mm-hmm.
Put the just put the potentiometer on another part of your body if you want to get warm.
If you ever take them apart, it has like a bunch of circle metal metal that's like, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Like a heat sink.
Yeah, if you have the RC race cars, you can see it in the little trigger thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's also the gas gauges. Gas gauges in most motorcycles.
Like if you hit the 1986 Frog.
Beatrice is definitely doing something behind you, darling.
Oh, yeah. No, she's sneaking. She's a sneak.
He's there on the dashboard of the Millennium Falcon.
Yeah. Don't get cocky, kid.
Anybody come up with a gift under $5,000? Chris Smith, what is your gift under $5,000?
You know what? Since we did podcast, had to have been like 5 years ago. I always wanted to do the Posty Challenge, which is fly to Australia, and then you get on this tour. You have to buy one of these Posty bikes, and then you ride across Australia with all these other monkeys. And then at the end of it, you just donate your bike to be sold to raise money for the homeless sewer guys that are over there.
Plenty of.
But I've always wanted to do the Posty Challenge down in Australia.
And the Posty Bike Challenge is a Honda CT110. So, yeah. So they're all CT110s. So you start with a dilapidated CT110, and then you get to make it better. You get to make it into your perfect bike. So there's the Posty Bike Challenge in Australia. There's a Tuk Tuk Challenge in India. So and they're both the same concept. As you go there, you buy the bike, you do the trip, and they have a van that follows you around with beer and steaks and good stuff like that. Yeah.
Sounds lovely.
Idea of heaven. That's fantastic.
Mm.
My $500 one was a helmet. I needed a helmet for like 10 years.
You do. Yeah.
I could totally use a helmet.
Yeah.
I forget what Peggy's $5,000 one. It was interesting as well.
What size helmet would one wear with a head like yours?
At least a XXX.
Okay.
The biggest one I can find.
Yeah.
Mine's the smallest one I can find.
I have a feeling Bex's helmet.
Unfortunately, children's size, they just aren't long enough. Like, I'm just like this tiny head, but I'm not a child's head. It's very bizarre.
You're one of the few people that wears a stocking cap to fit your helmet. You have to put that on first and then.
Yeah, so my first helmet, back in my GZ 250 days, my first helmet was also, I bought with the bike, and it was a man's large, and I wore a beanie and another beanie with a pom-pom to keep my helmet on. And I'd go up Highway 1 and I'd finally get up. I'm like full wide fucking open. Get up the hill and I get to go down the hill on one. And I'd tug, and it would just be choking me because it was catching all the air it could possibly.
Pulling up.
Oh, yeah. It was just don't pass out. Just don't pass out. You're fine. But Johnny Mac. Right? No, Frosty. You're Frosty now?
Yeah.
Okay, Frosty. Have you heard of MIPS?
I've been doing Christmas things.
Christmas things.
Oh, yeah,
I don't even get to Christmas Carol right now. We have tonight at midnight, we have a 3-week shutdown. Meh. But, so, have you heard of the MIPS technology?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yes.
we talked about it on a podcast about, I don't know.
My helmet's a MIPS, so I've got the cheapest MIPS you can buy. I've got a Bell Qualifier Deluxe, and the Bell Qualifier Deluxe is their standard helmet, but it has MIPS a MIPS basket in it, and it also has the transitions visor that changes colors, and it is already set up for a communicator. So it's the difference. And I think Oscar just got one of those too, didn't you?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Oscar just picked up the Isle of Man version of the MIPS helmet. So he got the Isle of Man version.
Aww.
And they're cool. I mean, the MIPS, the whole idea behind the MIPS is to let your head move. So, when you have that violent incident,
Yes.
it's better to have a little bit of a little twist.
Right.
And let there be just a little bit of twist, as opposed to your head versus 1.5 inches of polystyrene.
Doing the whole twist.
Yeah, right. So, just kind of go with it just a little bit.
Yeah.
The whole thing is just if you can imagine how much better it is to be a willow tree or a palm tree than it is to be the mighty oak. The willow trees and the palm trees survive virtually everything.
When it comes to your brain, and by the way, that's neuroscience is my bachelor's. When it comes to your brain, and it's appropriate, I played football in high school, and I definitely am appreciative that the MIPS technology is now more prolific throughout the sports industry. It's strange that Bell is the only manufacturer of MIPS technology for us motorcyclists. But regardless, the idea of having your brain, because it is in its own fluid sac, but to allow that fluid sac to do its impact comfort, it's brilliant. And hopefully you can find the XXX, you said?
Well, okay, so our friend Johnny Mack here spent many years of his life wearing a non-MIPS football helmet.
Yeah. The helmets that we had were, I don't know, they had cellular, they had pockets in them. So they were little blocks filled with foam.
Yep.
Embedded in plastic,
Oh, yeah, when you had hair, it would imprint this lovely, funky, design. It was lovely.
It looked like a pinhead. Yeah.
But I just remember after games not being able to speak and not being able to feel my tongue and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why I am how I am.
Well, how you are is quite lovely, darling.
Thank you.
I appreciate.
At least you can pinpoint you're down. Oh, I've been struggling with this for 50 years. I don't know where I went wrong.
So
I'm warming up my left hand.
You're gonna get some practice, right?
Did anybody do a Christmas present that's less than $5,000?
Yeah, I want a FLIR thermal camera for my motorcycle.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
But you can use it for your turkey too.
Yeah, I'm just saying I want one of those that they warn you, like if a deer is out in front of you or whatever, and they make them. So they're under $5,000.
Wow, and you don't have to take apart a Cadillac's dashboard to get that?
No, I mean, you can buy the small cameras I have one at home right now that's this big.
Yeah.
But the update rate's really slow, but and those are only $400. But the motorcycle ones are like a few thousand.
Wow. Well, that's cool.
But they give you a good thermal image of what's in front of you, and they have a higher pixel density. So
you can see things like, deer and people.
Right.
Right.
I think it's
it in your helmet.
Does it detect?
No, it's actually they don't have that yet, which I can't wait till that comes out because it would be nice to have like an overlay where you could see so you just look through your helmet and see what's coming up. But this is like a.
Haven't they been working on some heads-up technology for helmets?
Yes. And actually, I think that the FLIR technology for a helmet visor it exists. I don't know how.
No, it's supposed to exist with the company that fucked everybody out of their money.
Yeah, that's the one, right? The HD helmet, yeah.
Oh, it was a startup, like whatever, a crowdsourcing thing, and they spent all their money on whores. So instead of spending it on FLIRs, they spent it on whores.
Well, I guess that's hot.
Yes.
Oscar has one of the very first ever rear view vision cameras, or helmets.
With the mirrors, the Revu. Yep.
The first time I saw Oscar's wearing this helmet. It looks like he came out of Starship Troopers or Battlestar Galactica or whatever. He's riding a motor scooter from the 70s that is like back wheel to emission.
That's a weird thing.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
This bike is janky as fuck. We're in Tijuana, Mexico, the whole deal. And here comes this cat riding this vintage bike. But meanwhile, he's got this helmet on that seriously, mirrored out, baller looking thing. And he's like, well, it's a rear view. So it's a rear view. Is it called a review?
Is that a Revu? I think
yeah. So Oscar's like, try it on. So I grab this thing and I put it on my melon. And if I look up, like I'm glancing up, like I'm trying to remember something, if I look up like I'm trying to remember something, I can see exactly what's behind me. Not what's behind me off to the left or off to the right. It's dead on behind me. And okay, we are motorcycle people. We are used to a side view and a side view.
Yeah.
Right? The idea of being able to see a centipede crawling up the middle of my back is so weird, especially when it's directly straight up. And
you up the Janus jokes.
Oh, yeah. The first time I put the thing on, I nearly fell over because I couldn't stop looking at it. So it's got this little screen
mirror. Yeah, it's a little mirror.
It's just what do you call that, Oscar? It's
It just has a bunch of mirrors inside on the top of the helmet. It has like a rear window.
Yeah, it's like a
helmet. So the mirror just on top of it just reflects all the way to the back.
It sounds kind of like
periscope. You're right, like a periscope from your back.
Set up at angles to direct to the mirror in front of you, right?
Right. So like in a car, you can adjust to tilt it, and you just.
And there's no batteries. There's no electricity involved. There's nothing.
Yeah.
Well, at night, if somebody at night you're riding and there's a guy with the headlights on, does that just blind your ass? Is it just...
No, it's kind of tinted in the back, so it's not. It doesn't blind you.
I mean, considering how amazing it is, and it has no electricity and no moving parts aside from just adjusting the angle of it.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's similar to what centuries ago artists used to capture certain visuals and then kind of reproject them onto a canvas. It sounds like that technology is what's being utilized, but putting it into this strip in a fucking motorcycle visor. That's pretty badass.
You know what? Legendary American statesman Ben Franklin was famous for looking in his neighbor's windows using such devices. Look it up. So, but
Keeping Ben.
It's a very interesting thing. So, yeah, that's cool.
Hot corset.
Yeah, to do a thermal imaging system on a motorcycle, that's crazy cool.
That cool.
It is crazy cool.
Yeah.
So I have a friend of mine who just got out of traction 3 months from that rally, by the way, in Cambria. So that's actually how the rally started. And the next day it was followed by like a flat tire and then a bold tire. Anyway, it was an interesting, very eventful rally. It started with a deer strike with the middle of 3 riders riding at night. Probably shouldn't have, because there was no alcohol involved whatsoever, and no speed. This is the only person the local sheriff, actually motorcyclist, that the local sheriff has ever seen survive the 200 plus per year deer strikes in this area. He kept his bike up. I went back the next morning.
Yeah.
He kept his bike up over a quarter of a mile while he was pouring blood from the deer strike.
Amazing.
The deer was a young buck, lost one of the antlers in the explosion of my friend's leg. And he ended up being able to get the back end, hold his bike, or the guy behind him to hold his bike up, pooling blood, all of this stuff. And had he had a thermal, like had any of those people prior had a thermal indicator that, besides just knowing that it's rutting season, you probably shouldn't be riding at night, but like knowing that you're about to be hit by a deer, like that's invaluable for your life. Like,
I mean, the best headlights on any motorcycle, the best headlights I have on any of my bikes, they go out maybe 100 yards, maybe 200 yards tops.
Right.
And then it's nothing. It's blackness. And at 65, 75 miles an hour, you cover that like half a second. You know?
Well, in particular, yes, exactly. Very quickly. And then usually they're not coming from that same direction as your headlights.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're jumping across the side trying to mate with me as I go by at 70 miles an hour.
During running season, darling.
Exactly.
Especially on your Gucci or your Ducati with the lovely sounds they make.
Sexy. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. Anybody else got a sub $5,000 project or a sub $5,000 gift? Anyone?
Yeah. So my buddy, he bought one of the, and they go on sale most of the time at Harbor Freight. They're like $250 to $350, but one of the shitty motorcycle stands, right?
Yeah.
And he did like a $40 mod to it to help it so it doesn't like fall apart or, whatever. But I have to admit, like, I've never had an actual stand. I've always had like pit bull stands or whatever, but I've not. And like, I realize how much nicer it is to have that bike 3 feet off the ground or 2.5 feet off the ground, just so like your eyeballs are where you want to be working. Or even if it's a motorcycle stand, like I took my snowblower to his house to fix because I got sick of laying on the ground trying to get to different parts. He put it up on the stand and things. So I mean, like, if you got a few $100 extra bucks laying around, that Harbor Freight motor, I mean, obviously there's better ones out there, and if you can afford them, congratulations. But for a minimal investment, $250, $350, that's a pretty nice machine, like a pretty nice addition.
And to let you guys know, I know plenty of people who put really big, stupid Harley Davidsons up on those Harbor Freight lifts, those red or yellow Harbor Freight lifts. And I'm telling you, those things are rated to 900 pounds Chinese. And like 900 pounds Chinese is like 750 American. So when you are doing that, I've seen videos of guys hoisting up giant FLHs on these $300 Harbor Freight lifts. Now, it's shocking to me that they get away with it, but they do. Just be aware of what you're up to. But they are fantastic. It is the most fun you can have for $300 getting your bike in the air. That being said, if you double that and go to $600 or $700, Kendon and other companies make ones that work really fucking good.
Oh yeah,
and are safer. Yeah. So if you guys want, I can turn you on to a couple of different lifts that are under $700 that they can do it, because the Harbor Freight one, the way it works is it's a big parallelogram. Mm-hmm. So it starts out flat and then it becomes a parallelogram, so that your center of mass actually goes higher and more towards the good side of the spectrum, the good side of the square. But as it gets lower, it shifts forward. And that's where most of the accidents happen, is if you get it to the fully erect point, not a problem. It's when it's becoming less erect that things go sideways real fast. And it's also
less erect. Would that be flaccid?
No, less erect. Flaccid.
A version of the whole situation.
Yes. So, but here's where we've seen this, and we have had this happen to our customers as well, is when you're trying to get funky with it, when you're trying to get jiggy with it, like the front wheel is in the world's worst wheel clamp. So take that thing away and put a wheel chock on it, like a proper safety wheel chock.
And a couple ratchet straps.
Bingo. When people try to change when people try to change a rear tire on those or change a front tire on those, and the weight shifts on the bike suddenly, that's when stuff gets dangerous and people get hurt. So yeah, be aware of that. They do work, and it's amazing.
I like to put a little scissor lift under the bike on the lift and just bring it up under the frame, and it's barely need
those are cheap at that point. Or get an old car jack. Yeah.
And those will help too when you're doing micro adjustments to rebalance the bike.
Oh, sometimes with those lifts, it's really easy. You can set the wheel where you want the wheel to be, and you can set the swing arm where you want the swing arm to be. And if you have that little scissors jack, you can just give it a quarter turn, a half an inch, and all the holes will line up magically. And it is so much better to have the holes line up that way than to have to buy 6 or 7 beers. It's way easier to go in the way they're supposed to. Yeah. So there's that. Okay, anyone else got any big gift ideas?
I need a new garage.
I'd like a hot tub.
Your $25,000 one, I was like, oh man, I could have a new garage with an actual paint booth in it and a heat device and places for all the bikes. And yeah, that'd be.
I was wondering if anybody was going to take the bait on that $25,000 gift idea. Yeah. Because the $25,000 gift idea, everyone's going like, oh, do I want a BMW or do I want a Harley or do I want a Ducati? No, dude, get a garage. Yeah. For $25,000, you can get a garage you can live in.
Yeah.
I was thinking I wanted 5 acres of wood.
Build a garage on.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Really. I would really, really like a very large scale metal 3D printer for $25,000. Maybe next year. Probably right now it's about $65,000, but maybe next year it'll be about $25,000.
Yeah.
I want to be able to produce larger pieces of 3D printed metal or carbon fiber even pieces.
Well, as when we were shooting,
then I could start a business, and then I could buy a garage, and then I could buy the 5 acres, and then I could buy my Ducati. And
I think you need a little more though, because our buddy Fernando that was helping us shoot on Tuesday, he worked for a place where they have a $500,000 Hewlett Packard 3D printer, and it can print carbon fiber, it can print all different kinds of stuff, metal too, but it's $500,000 at this point. So.
Well, can we take that to a magnitude of 10 or maybe? Yeah.
At this point, the fantasy is whatever you want it to be. So
we'll take 10 Christmases all at the same time.
Yeah, can I do that?
My son just built a 3D printer with a 27 by 27 bed.
Okay.
It does carbon fiber for like $2,000.
Wow.
Well, he built it himself. He bought he sourced all the parts. He sourced the trays, sourced all the other stuff. So
that's
cool. I'm out of focus, but I don't know what the hell's the matter with my camera.
Focus, you fuck.
It won't focus. The fucking thing won't
Is
focus.
this person's name Mark, and does he live in Washington?
No, it's Pat, and he lives pretty much on my front porch.
Oh. That's convenient.
No,
Well, I don't think my battery is very good because my gloves have grown cold.
Yeah.
They're not really hot much anymore.
I think you've load tested that battery.
Yeah, no.
He's going to load test that glove later on.
Probably.
Oh, no.
I might be load testing it right now. You don't know.
Ew, Vex, look away. Look away.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't see the left hand.
Does anyone else have a $25,000 Christmas present?
I definitely took the bait. I was looking at the SRF. I just fucking love it.
You went SRF?
Yeah.
I was looking at bikes, but most bikes I believe in change on the table.
No, that's true. And like with the SRF, you would too. Like,
yeah.
You know, we sold one the other day to a guy because of the discounts. We managed to get some like weird, crazy demo discounts. And so we sold an SRF the other day for, normally a $22,000 bike, and we sold it for 18 grand. So, you know, brand new SRF, premium heated grips, 6 kilowatt charger, everything with 18 miles on it. And we sold it for 18 grand. So, you know, that's just like knowing how to play the zero game, like understanding when they sell stuff cheap. You know, that's just part of dealing with that company. But yeah, it's a funny thing because there's a federal tax credit that ends on December 31st. And that federal tax credit gets you 10% of the purchase price of an electric vehicle, but it also gets you 30% of the purchase price of any charging or storage accessories. So like you could stretch that to be like $4,000 on a bike and a charger, you know? Nice. So yeah, there's some weird stuff right now happening before that magically goes away. If it does go away, I don't know if it's coming back.
Talk about caroling and bells singing for a Christmas present.
Yeah, that's it.
So not only do you have enough money to buy a $5,000 bike, if you're anticipating $25,000,
right?
You get two bikes. You can have a petrol bike and you can have an electric bike, but then you also come February or maybe June, if you're lackadaisical about it, you get a few $1,000s back so you can buy an old vintage project.
And that's true. It's like, okay, you buy, you're getting a $2,000 or $3,000 tax credit. Yeah, that's money. That's found money, right? The other night I drove the Honda Helix home from the shop, the 1999 Honda Helix. My God, Steve, what am I looking at? It looks like
nice.
Yeah, trying to get this thing to focus. That's my rocks glass.
That's your rocks glass? Oh, I thought I was looking at somebody's rosebud.
Yeah.
I don't want to know what that is, to be honest.
You don't want to know what?
Like I don't. I played the game. What is it called? Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Things that I learned that I can't unlearn, and I don't want to learn anymore, so I don't play that game.
Phil played that with his 10-year-old niece or something.
No, I played it with Jim Stark. I played it with Jake Stark.
Oh, shocking.
Jake Stark, she was still underage by a lot.
Shocking.
Shocking. Disturbing. Shocking.
Yeah, I know.
Frightening. I'm not putting the children of today down. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the youth of America. What I'm saying is it made me blush because, one, I'm a guest in their house. I'm a guest there. I'm not going to be like, hey, let me roll out the hits. So I was going gentle because there was a juvenile in the room, so I'm pumping the brakes constant.
Thank God.
Yeah, and this 15, 16-year-old girl comes out and just is slaying it with big rubber dicks. And I'm just like, whoa, you don't comment on that. Because like your little offhanded comment could just say way too much about your backstory, you know? So yeah, nobody needs to know that, especially not, a 16-year-old kid.
Yeah, no kidding.
My daughter was going to get this T-shirt for Peggy. It says, I just baked you some shut the fuck up cakes. I'm like, all right. I like that one.
I did listen to the NPR article that said the 3 top toys in America this year for Christmas all involve poo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, goodness. You're kidding.
Anal-focused society right now.
No, have you seen the game that they're talking about? It's fucking awesome. It's
what?
You roll, you hit the plunger on the toilet. There's a toilet. You hit the plunger on it and a dice falls out. And whatever the number on the dice is, you have to plunge the toilet. And if you get 3 plungers or whatever, a turd flies out the top of it. And then whoever catches the turd, if the guy who plunges it catches it, it's cool. But if somebody else catches the turd who didn't plunge it, then that guy gets 5 points. And it's crazy. And it's all for 4-year-old kids to grab turds flying out of toilets.
Can we turn those into frogs at least, so that we don't
training people
humans throwing up adults into 2 spoons or 2 girls?
I think
that I cannot unsee, and I am very upset.
Are you saying about 2 girls, 1 cup?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, something like that. It was very not okay.
Well, I mean, the company's German that produces it, and I just figured they're just trying to make everybody German at that point.
It's just like any German porn. It's all fucked up. So
it all starts normal. Everything starts normal. It's fun.
I think that's normal, right?
You roll into it, and you're just like, this is normal. This is fine. I know where this is going. There's rules to pornography. There's steps that we take. It's all fine. And then you discover it's German.
Yeah, the guy's named Gunter. Get out. If Gunter is involved in it, just leave. Go somewhere else. You don't want that. It's not good.
There's just that thing. Or you don't realize it. You're just watching it and you're enjoying some pornography. And you don't think there's anything weird about it and everything's normal. And then you realize the guy's got a bracelet on that says Audi. Be careful. It's going to get weird. Pig Mania.
Oh, Pig Mania. That's a great drinking game. Making bacon. Where's making bacon?
What the hell is Pig Mania?
We used to drink. Drinking game.
Is this something that my okay? So by the way, Thursday nights I normally have my game night with my super nerdy friends, and we have games. Is Pigsty a game that I should introduce, or is that kind of
Pig Mania?
Come on, Dank.
Dan, what is the premise of the game?
Pigs. You roll the pigs, and depending on the position of the pigs, it's like a dice game.
So right.
But are the pigs
use it as a drinking game?
It is?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a drinking. We always use it as a drinking game, but that.
Wait,
the little pigs that you roll.
So when you roll the pigs, they end up fucking? Is that what happened?
Oh, no, that's
called making bacon.
Making bacon.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Good.
This world's becoming the world of idiocracy.
Oh, it is 100%.
Yes,
seriously, like that turd game. It's like that movie the movie within the movie of Idiocracy, butt or ass or whatever it was. It's like it was 2 hours of an ass, and it didn't even say a word. And then at the end, he's like, "I think that ass will have a story, and we will know why that ass was on the screen." I mean, it's like this is what our world's coming.
I love when somebody bangs on his door and he goes, "Go away, baiting."
Baiting.
And all their clothes are sponsored. They don't have any clothes that aren't sponsored by a company.
That movie is great, but it's
horrific.
It's our world now. It's our world right now.
Oh, when I saw it, I was so repulsed.
Wait, that one goes in your mouth and that one goes in your butt.
So nobody else has a $25,000 gift?
Oh, I fell for the same thing as Oscar. I said a Goldwing.
Goldwing, yeah.
Oh, really?
Goldwing, yeah.
Why? What's the matter with Goldwings?
It's perfect for you, honey.
I'm an old white piece of crap.
No, it's perfect for you.
Do you want a modern?
You know that you have the added bidet. Give it a little class for your ass.
No, I like the ones without the trunk.
You want a DCT?
No, I don't want a DCT.
You're right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, I have everything else. and I sold all 5 of my gold wings.
Right.
So I have no gold wings left.
Oh.
You didn't even want to get that free silver wing.
I wanted it, but you just like kind of
my fault.
I figured 25 grand would go toward the compound for something.
I think silver wings are actually pretty cool.
Oh, I love silver. I mean, I'm looking for a GL 650.
No.
Yeah, I was impressed. I liked it. It wasn't so ostentatious that, well, it was mildly offensive, put it that way.
Mildly offensive?
You mean the 650, the silver wing?
The silver wing. Mm-hmm.
Silver wing, yeah. Yeah, I have no love, and I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but I have absolutely no love for any of the Moto Guzzi style transverse V-twin Hondas.
No CXs, no.
It's not just not sexy, it's unsexy.
Exactly. It is.
No doubt.
There's and they've tried many of them. There's the CL, the GL. They've tried everything they can do with that sideways motor. They've tried doing it in the form of like a slight cruiser because there was the custom.
Yeah.
So they did the custom.
I don't like those.
Right.
But I mean, unsexy.
That's the one I see.
I look at it like, hey, I'm a 57-year-old white guy. I'm unsexy. and along with the rest of Phil's laundry list of loser white guys. So.
I do believe that you should hesitate on including other persons into that laundry list.
Well, that's the thing is, I've had an axe to grind against old white men for a very long time, but I keep moving closer and closer to them, right? And that's moving. The tough thing is
closer and closer to them.
Every day, if anybody were to follow me at work and see what I do for a living, you would understand that my day can be, I can have 100 things to do and I can do 96 of them. And then an old white guy shows up and it grinds to a halt, And so that's the tough thing for us. The tough thing for me is the thing that I'm into and the thing that brings me so much joy. Unfortunately, some guy will show up with a 55-inch waist, a leather vest he bought 90 pounds lighter, a vest that has chains connecting it in the front because it can't connect in the front anymore on its own. So he has to have vest extensions.
And I can't believe how they'll sneak up on you, man. We went I think it was me, Hoff, and Smith. We went for a ride way out to fucking Geneva on the lake one day, and I was on my 850. I just finished it like a week or two before. And we stopped at a gas station to get gas. And those guys were all waiting for me, and I'm sitting there and I'm filling the tank up, and this fucking guy snuck up on me, and all I heard was, I haven't seen one like that since 1986. And then I was stuck there for fucking 10 minutes, man. I was doing the best to get out, but there's nothing you could do. They're both like, where the fuck are you, dude? And I'm like, dude, I got a barnacle stuck to me and I can't get this fucking thing off, man. It's fucking crazy. There's nothing. It's like all you have to have is a vintage bike that looks halfway decent, and it's like a fucking duck call. It's like these dudes just come out of, I don't even know where he came. I don't think he had a car. He just fucking showed up and was just asking questions. And I'm like, dude, it's a fucking bike. I got to go, man. Like, they're going to later. You're right.
Imagine being a female. I have short hair for a reason because I'm not interested in attention. I ride a motorcycle, and while riding cross country, actually.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention to you. What did you say?
Oh, wait, yeah, let's go back to you don't like a lot of attention. Let's go back 3 years to Mid-Ohio when you had a tutu, a onesie, and a uniform on.
That's for Wonder Woman.
Okay.
That is for Wonder Woman.
That's your alter ego.
At Mid-Ohio, we're all craving a little attention.
Yeah.
At Mid-Ohio, I don't know how many hours I had slept in the few days that I took to travel across the country. That was an experience.
I think that at Mid-Ohio, we're not
overwhelmed, and I'm not typically overwhelmed with things, but.
I think at Mid-Ohio, we just turn our filters off. I think at Mid-Ohio, you just turn the filters off. And you just
Yes. Okay. So, however.
We're saying.
Okay.
That's what happens when there's too many colors.
T2, I think I wore a cape.
I mistook you for Cameron.
No, the good thing about Mid-Ohio is there's usually a lot of accessories. You usually have a lot of accessories.
Steve, she was way more masculine than Cameron. Come on.
I know. So, yeah. Should have known.
We usually have a full costume closet with us at some point. So, what do you want? You want a Viking helmet? We have a Viking helmet. Would you like coconut bra? We have coconut bra. We have
a leg. If you need a leg, Phil has a leg.
Oh, good God.
Yeah. I'm literally buying stuff right now for next year's Mid-Ohio.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah.
Okay, well, so usually I have a big, huge bike, and I have a different experience when people realize that I'm female.
Yep.
And that's kind of, I don't know, just in.
I can't ever pretend to understand your particular situation. All I can do is be like, damn, I'm glad that's not me. You know, because I don't know if I can handle it. Is somebody running a electric device around the microphone? It sounds like somebody's vacuuming.
Oh. That's Bex. I killed it. So hold on, Bex. Somebody died at your house or something.
Uh-oh, what's going on? Does Bex have a ghost?
Yeah.
Maybe the fan on the laptop is just.
Is the fan on? Does she have a air purifier?
I don't know, but now I can't unmute her.
Uh-oh.
Now she's stuck in.
Come back.
Yes, that's what happened. So
that's so much better.
Oh.
Why can't I do that to my wife?
Oh no! Yeah, I can't unmute her. Now she's
You're kidding me. Unmute yourself. Max, unmute yourself.
There she goes. All right.
Oh wait, did you hear
vacuum cleaner go away?
No, it's back. No, you have a vacuum cleaner running in the background.
Do you have a Roomba?
Cinch, look at your phone.
Did that work?
Okay, so the last column, the last category is $20 stocking stuffers. $20. 20 whole dollars. What do you want for $20?
Chocolate.
Impress me. Chocolate. That's good.
I do have on one of my helmets, but not on the other one. For reducing the fog on the pin lock,
yep.
Fog inserts.
Yep.
Those are really good, and they're
$20 will save your life. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's solid. I like that. I'm a good fan. Anyone else got a $20 gift idea? Kromke?
Bag of 10 millimeter sockets.
Yes.
All of them.
Here's a trick I'll bet you didn't know. If you go on Amazon or one of those other usual dirt bags, you can buy a set of nothing but 10 millimeter sockets. And it'll have a 1/4 inch drive, regular 10 mil. It'll have a deep wall 10 mil. It'll have a 10 mil wobbly socket. It'll have a 3/8 inch drive 10 mil. It's got the whole family of 10 millimeters. And there's nothing on the stick that isn't a 10 millimeter. Everything's 10 millimeter. And it's 10 millimeter that works with every different implement of destruction. So you can have, instantly all of your crimes of losing tools are forgiven by buying one thing. And it's all the 10 millimeters.
Excellent. Get out of hell card.
The get out of hell card, exactly. It's our I'm not a shitty mechanic card. It's look at me. So when I found out you could buy them, I bought 5 of them. And I gave them to people because it's literally... I think I gave John one. Yeah.
I thought you were saying I lost them all.
I'm actually the one who has all the 10 millimeter sockets.
Right.
You're like the snow miser or heat miser, but you're the 10 millimeter socket miser.
Right. When I reorganized my garage, the Garage Mahal, I started, I put up slat wall. So instead of putting up pegboard, I went better and I hung up slat wall. and I hung up slat wall, and I started hanging all the wrenches. And as I went through my garage and started cleaning out my garage, I have 9 13-millimeter wrenches.
Ooh.
Okay? Like regular, traditional, open-ended wrenches. I have 9 13-millimeter wrenches, but I have 1 10-millimeter wrench.
You won't lose anything that you could use a half-inch with, too.
That's true. Exactly right. Yeah.
You're interchangeable, so.
Did you see the porcaphone?
The porcaphone?
Steve? Yeah, that was what I sent you.
Oh, no. I'm gonna put, yeah, hold on. So Max says we have to watch this.
Okay, I'm watching.
Oh, no volume.
No volume?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh boy. You're kidding.
Happy New Year.
Well done. Well done. That was amazing.
I've got that little
Dude is funny.
Of course you have a fucking pig phone thing.
So the pig is a very auspicious animal when it comes to European cultures and New Year's Eve. In European culture, it's not uncommon to receive a pink candy peppermint pig and a small hammer. And if you take said small peppermint candied pig and smash it with a hammer, the more pieces are in the bag, the better luck you're going to have in the following year.
All right.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That sounds like a really fun thing to do.
Smashing a pig with a hammer is big fun.
Yeah.
In Lakewood, all we do is get a lab monkey and light it on fire and throw it off the roof of a 6-story building.
Oh, it's a new use for your Lewis bag.
I'm sad for this monkey. What happened to the monkey?
Oh, it's like we had this big joke going on, the Burning Monkey Fest. And so it was a big hoax we did every year. We got a bunch of bones, and then we took pictures of this monkey like running around on a roof and then lighting it on fire and throwing it off the roof. And we called it the Burning Monkey Fest. But then we'd leave a pile of burnt bones on the ground on a sidewalk, and people would find it. And then, like, PETA was going crazy. Everybody's going crazy because there was this, like, pile of burnt bones on the sidewalk. But, I mean, they weren't monkey bones. They were just, like, bones from, like, a chicken or something, you know? So it was like, so each year we'd be like, at 12:05, we're throwing the monkey off the roof. And so all these people would show up at like this building in the middle of downtown Lakewood, and then it would be like, we take pictures of it, but it wasn't like, it was already done, and the pile of monkey bones, burning, smoldering monkey bones was on the ground. And everybody would freak out about it. And it's like, it never happened, but it was fun. Look it up, Burning Monkey Festival.
Burning Monkey Fest. So Daniel Krause again. We mentioned it last week. So this is my Lewis bag. We've all seen my Lewis bag. This is my Lewis bag. And on the Lewis bag, there is instructions. And the instructions on the Lewis bag actually show a picture of a vintage mallet of sorts.
Yeah.
You see a picture on there of a mallet. Well, it just so happens that when my mom died and I went into her house, I found our family mallet. And it turns out this mallet is, in fact, the exact same mallet, identical mallet that's on the instructions for the Lewis bag. Wow. So this here mallet, it's not just my mom's, it was my great-grandma's, all right? So this thing's been around the block once or twice, and it turns out there is nothing better in the world for turning ice cubes into snow than this combination.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you have this combination right here, John, you got it. If you've got these things right here, you will end up making the best snow cone you've ever had.
That mallet's also responsible for why you don't have 15 other cousins.
exactly how this. That's exactly what this mallet was built for. Yeah. I made this in shop class because my dad would freeze gallons of water, and then we'd use this to smash the fuck out of them so we could make homemade ice cream.
Yeah.
And this was an ice smashing mallet.
I strongly recommend. And
I just like to note that mine's slightly bigger than yours.
That's got to be about 22 inches, right?
Yeah.
Mine is aerodynamically correct.
18.
Yeah, at least.
Phil's has Peyronie's disease. Yours is more just straightforward.
Well, mine broke and it got shortened at one point.
That's what I've told people my whole life.
It was
it used to be a lot longer.
It was one of those things that I couldn't. When I first got this stupid, when I got this Lewis bag, and one of the things, obviously, you're messing around with stuff and having a good time, and when you're playing around, you forget, that you have things in your house. And I was just smashing the living hell out of this Lewis bag with ice in it. And I didn't have a hammer. I was just freeballing it. I was just grabbing the sack and just giving the sack what for against the countertop. And my wife, after the fifth hit, she was like, I hate you. You need to get another house because this isn't going to work. And then she looked at it, and when she looked at the damn thing, and it's got a picture of the mallet that was sitting on the back of our oven.
She's like, oh, honey, you didn't read the instructions. Let me help you, darling.
Exactly.
Imagine that.
Bex, it's just a picture. It's the best.
Yes, no, I know. It's a male version of instructions, but sometimes
I'm what they called gifted. Right?
I agree. You're like, let me chew on this.
Anyway, this is the greatest thing. So if you like cocktails and you want to really make it more fun, do this. You'll like it. You'll appreciate a Lewis bag and a big fucking hammer, a BFH, right? So, yeah.
Really fun.
I like that John has one as well.
Probably use a meat mallet. I mean, a lot of people, if you don't have a nice wooden hammer, like a meat mallet or something like that.
Yeah. But, I mean, if you do any leather work, I think Sleepy's getting into painting, but he's probably going to get into more of that. So you might find yourself with, different types of leather working tools, and leather working hammers will work well, too.
So I have a question. You did mention a meat mallet.
Yeah. Yes, for pounding your meat.
So this is what you use to beat your meat?
Yes, of course.
I've been doing it wrong.
I beat it frequently.
Got a flat edge,
doing it wrong.
flat side, and a dimpled side.
Yes. Again, I've been doing it wrong.
Yeah,
I'm just saying
it's how you make a scallopini, or if you want to make schnitzel, you beat it out and flatten it out.
I've been going at this al fresco my entire life. I had no idea there was.
You don't want to just use your hand to beat it. You want to use your meat mallet.
Considering
you've been too nice to your meat, Phil.
I don't trust you.
Considering
nice to your meat.
You know what? I can be fooled into a lot of things, but I can't be fooled into a meat mallet.
You just throw your meat up there on the counter.
Nope.
Whack the shit out of it.
Considering that Smith likes to make sausage and stuff, do you think that he uses a meat mallet on his meat and then takes it home on his Janus, or takes that load of meat home on his Janus?
That load of freshly beaten meat?
Yes.
Every once in a while, he's got a load of freshly beaten meat.
And you got to get it home. You might as well just shove it in your Janus and just take it as far as you can go.
When you're
remember, you can't have your pudding if you don't
stuffing all your meat. Man,
we're not talking about your Janus, Chris.
No, we're talking about his stuffed meat.
Yeah, right.
So, is that a natural casing?
Chris, I know you make certain kinds of meat and sausage. Do you have a meat hammer?
Meat hammer.
That's what, all the professionals.
You don't own a meat mallet?
No, I'm going to go get it.
Mallet.
I'm going to bring it down here right now.
Go get your meat mallet. I got one. That was a Christmas present. I needed a meat mallet.
I feel like I'm Amish all of a sudden because I've always beaten my meat by hand.
I know.
You can do that, and that's what I used to beat my meat. I used to beat my meat by hand, but then my poor wife saw me beat my meat with my hand. She felt bad for me, so she thought she'd help me out. Next thing I know, I get this hammer. So I'm beating my meat with a hammer now.
I'm so out of my element.
I was always worried about breaking the shaft. You know, like you don't want to break the shaft of your meat hammer. That'd be terrible.
I want to.
I want to participate in it. Bex is like, I want to participate in this so badly. However, I really don't want to engage.
I want to help. It sounds like a very frustrating situation and confusing. And I'm like, I don't have a solution, but I'd love to offer one. However, I just have.
I mean, you're more than welcome to come over and beat my meat.
So you're saying that you've never beaten?
So Bex, would you say that you? Do you shuck your clam manually or do you use tools?
Well, I got a knife for that.
I'm an old-fashioned, classy kind of lady.
There you go.
Clam.
That hammer doesn't look big enough to beat my meat.
Oh, that looks intimidating.
That's a lot smaller than my meat beater.
Yeah, look at this. I got giant meat beaters. Look at that fucking dude.
You can't make a good schnitzel.
Well, I do have to say that it only takes 2 fingers to hold onto the brake and 1 to really throttle down.
Exactly. Oh, that's awful. This is a terrible podcast. Nobody should ever listen to us, ever.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about meat.
1 star, worst charcuterie podcast ever.
3 stars. What
3 stars. Yeah,
best podcast ever. 3 stars.
I tuned for motorcycles and I got an anatomy lesson.
So, does anybody else have?
Hey guys, I gotta go. I gotta go pound one out for dinner tomorrow.
I accidentally hit my ankle with my hammer.
That's impressive. My knees have been blown apart by him smacking them with my meat hammer, but I've never hit my ankles.
I hit my own ankle.
You know, they have holsters for that, or you can tuck it in your sock if you have to. I mean, come on.
Now, not to be a dick, but before this releases,
that's not what we're talking about.
Oh no!
Oh, you mighty meat men, hang on. By the time this plops, we will have released our Christmas greetings. I've recorded a little bit of something for you guys.
Do you want to see it on here? We can play it.
You can play if you want to play it. We should play it for our podcast listeners. A special, a treat.
It is so good.
So we could do that.
Hold on.
The rules of the holiday, particularly in this season.
Yeah, this is something that Steve made me do, and after 5 or 6 whiskeys, I was up for it.
I think it worked out.
Yeah. You had a flow.
Well, the camera was on, so I figured I had to perform.
All right, I don't know how the audio. Let's see how the audio is going to come out here. Hold on.
Right.
It might be loud, it might not be, but here you go.
All right. Turn it up.
Was the week before Christmas, and all through the shop, not a dollar was spending. The commerce had stopped. The window was dressed with Christmassy flair in hopes that the customers soon would be there. The virus had sucked up our holiday cash. If you had a great job, how long would it last? Well, James and Renee and Phil thought real hard. Shopping's too risky. Should we just sell gift cards? We just about given up all of our hope. The governor said quarantine. The people said nope. When what to my worrying eyes should appear, but folks buying bikes and folks buying gear. Politics don't matter, conspiracies aside, as soon as it's summer, our people will ride. A Guzzi, a Vespa, Ducati, and Honda. We sold them all, even once we're at Fonda. There's no New Year's party, no holiday dances. Merry Christmas to all, ride fast and take chances.
Nice.
And
then it just goes to subscribe to our shit. All right. Anyways, yeah. So
that'll look better on Saturday when he drops it actually to the.
Actually, you know what you said in the thing? You said a week. So tomorrow is a week exactly from Christmas.
Yeah, it is.
Tomorrow at 11 a.m. That fucker's going live.
Oh, you're going to drop it early? Good.
Nice.
11 a.m. tomorrow. Yeah, get some feet on that thing because it's good.
Yeah, it is good. I'm pretty happy with it. Yeah.
My favorite line is, and bikes were not Fonda. That's the best one.
And the best part is Phil's eyes twinkled because he knew it was a fucking great line. He was like,
yeah, I wrote 3/4 of that on Monday out of my brain on edibles. I'll tell you something. If you're a cannabis manufacturer, if you're a person that makes edibles, the worst thing you can make is a single chocolate bar that has 80 milligrams of THC in it.
Agreed.
80 milligrams is way too much THC for one chocolate bar.
Yeah.
And I know that what you're saying is you're not supposed to eat the whole chocolate bar.
That doesn't happen.
The problem is it's chocolate.
Right.
And start laughing over there.
And if you have chocolate, the quantity is all right. Yeah. So like and it's dark chocolate, orange flavored. Like orange flavored dark chocolate is really good. And yeah, and so I couldn't read on the package where it said 80 milligrams for the unit, right? So I just took the thing and I was like, well, okay, I'll just eat half of it.
And wait, before you go on, for the typical person that might not know about cannabis and cannabis type materials,
right.
A normal, I'm kind of high dose, like of actual medical grade, whatever, is 8 milligrams.
Right. Yeah.
Right, but for Sleepy and Dan, that's like 8. You need 800.
Yeah. Well.
Are you sure that wasn't just for baking?
Yes.
That was supposed to be a baking bar.
Hopefully for me,
it is for baking. It is for baking.
If I just want to give a day, just to donate a day to complete body relaxation, I will have about 25 milligrams. And 25 milligrams shuts me off, right? I'm not participating in life, but I'm being part of the universe, right? Mm-hmm. And that's 25 milligrams. And I did not eat the entire thing because at some point I was smart, but I did look at what I had left. So what I had left was about 15 milligrams. So I did, over the course of 2 separate doses, I did take in about 65 milligrams because I had mixed up the packaging. I had mixed up the products. And the one product I'm used to is 25 milligrams, and I just went for it. But by 3 p.m., I had to take a nap because I just couldn't. I was having far too much fun. I was over-medicated to the point where even the ridiculously mundane things started to take on a life of their own. Right. And so the rule is either have some black pepper. If you have some black pepper, that will reduce the effects of THC, or just have a nap. And I decided to just have a nap. So I had a nap, and when I woke up, but it was one of those ones where I was medicated for well over 12 hours.
And did you try eating a hot dog? That usually kills my butt. Eat some munchies or something.
Well, no. Yeah. I did. I will tell you, I ate my way through like 2 bags of, tortilla chips and salsa and everything else. Like,
oh, you did the right thing. It just didn't work.
Yeah. So I have a friend. I have a friend that has never had a sip of beer, has never drank wine. He's like he's 51 years old. He'd never done anything. His wife has had cancer over the last few years and had, a couple treatments, and she's cured, but she still has pain from some stuff and things. And so she has been prescribed medical marijuana. And so I've helped her get into some things, whatever. And I got her these really gnarly gummies. Like she needs to get knocked out at night and go to sleep because she has pain. Yeah. So she had this bag, and there's probably about 20 gummies in this bag, and each gummy is probably 50 milligrams. They're hard, they're heavy hitters. They're big old sausage guys. So her brain was like, okay, I'm going to cut these up into 4s. And then I don't want to put them back in the bag because it's crazy. So I'll put them in this little glass dish and I'll put them in the bedroom and I'll just have one before I go to bed.
Okay.
Well, her husband, who works at the Cleveland Clinic, woke up and was doing whatever and was like, oh, wow, cool, gummies, man. I have a sweet tooth. And he fucking sucked down the whole jar of these gummies and went to work. And he was in for a day under test because they didn't know if he was having a panic attack, ulcer. Like they went through like 25 or 30 different things. Then they came back and they're like, well, according to this, you have about 1,100 milligrams of THC in your body at the moment.
Holy shit.
On Monday, I couldn't have left my living room. It's out of the question. There was it was that situation where I took a nap on the couch. I woke up on the couch. My wife came home from work and I stayed on the couch. Like there were questions that were asked and I had a conversation with my wife on the phone. I don't remember any of it. Like it's totally, and I haven't been that rocked in a little while because this was the idea. I knew I had to write that. I knew I had to write that script. So I wanted to give myself a little creative edge. Right.
Oh yeah.
So I decided to give myself a little creative edge, and I went way too far. Yep. So, yeah, big mistake on my part. Lots of fun, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But,
you're not dead,
Oh, yeah. Big deal. So I got 11 hours of sleep in one day. Who cares,
Right, yeah.
I love 11 hours of sleep.
Yeah, Steve, the cookies that my friend Harley Bob sent for you, he gave a very strict warning, no more than half a cookie.
Okay. I like it. I'm in. So what he's saying is eat 2 and call you the next day.
That's it. That's how we do. So let's go. So if that's all anybody else has, I mean, what else could we possibly want? Are
we going to have next week? Christmas is on Friday. So are we going to have a podcast next week?
It's up to y'all, man. I mean,
I think we should have a festive time.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, the idea of jumping in the van and driving down to my sister's house in St. Petersburg, Florida, really in today's environment, even that feels insane. Like that feels like you're just tempting the fate. I've gotten through this. I started coronavirus by having coronavirus. Like how did you start the COVID? Well, I had it. Yeah. So step 1, have the virus. Step 2, avoid the virus for the next 9 months. I don't want to get it again.
I honestly think I had it when I had my surgery because I came home and I was like, and the thing was I didn't know why I was feeling so bad. And I thought it was because of the surgery. Mm-hmm. But for 3 days I was sweating. I had crazy fevers and I felt horrible. And then about the 4th day, it started to go away. And then I just felt like I had a surgery. But I still think, because they didn't know shit about it. And here I am, I was cut open in a hospital surrounded by people that probably at that point, December 30th, January 1st, there was probably COVID in that hospital at that point.
Yeah.
I don't
know. My buddy's a first responder. He's on the list of people who can go get it, the vaccine right now.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to do it. But I'm going to go hit him, take his ID, and go get it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time I've used his name.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Because I'm ready to start hugging people again.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting how it all rolls out, too. Because, they've already raised the question, well, I've had the vaccine. Do I still have to wear a mask? Well, you kind of have to just so you swim with the fishes. Everybody else is out there. You walk into a joint, you're not wearing a mask. And that's not really the people I worry about. It'll be all the people who are like, I don't need to wear a mask. I had a vaccine. Prove it. The controversy just beginning.
Well, somebody brought that up. They're
like a V put on their forehead. A nice V on their forehead.
Right. What do you get when you get the vaccine? Do you get a bracelet that's hard to get? What do you get to signify the fact?
In England, they're actually giving you a certificate that says you were vaccinated.
Because nobody has copiers or anything,
Right.
If you get Bill Gates one, you get the blue screen of death.
Did anybody see the John Cusack Netflix thing that they had to put a warning and disclosure about before what was it called? Dystopia. Utopia, yeah.
Oh, that's a great show. That show was awesome.
Documentary.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I did, after I got my vasectomy, I tried to get the little V card so I could get a free pass. But it didn't work.
That's the thing. I watched that and everybody's freaking out and stuff. I'm like, wait, I volunteered for that. Like, good. Fucking make people sterile. I'm cool with it.
You should have just tattooed a V on your nutsack.
So can I just, not that this is a viral or like a science podcast or anything like that, but in our era, like what we're dealing with is not knowing whether or not the vaccine can actually vaccinate against transmission, right? So the statistics that we're seeing whether or not it is effective against being sick for that individual, not whether or not that individual can get other people sick.
Oh, okay.
That's a huge unknown right now, and that's part of what the FDA's just emergency use act or like acceptance. Basically, they're allowing this emergency use for these vaccinations because we don't know all of what it can do, but what we do know is that it prevent at like the 96 or the 93 or the 95% ratio, those persons who are vaccinated with the 2-dose, not a 1-dose, 2-dose, that they don't get sick at a 95 or 93% ratio. Has nothing to do with whether or not they are carrying the virus and can transmit it to their grandma or their auntie or their grocer. So just heads up.
And don't forget, 5 to 7% of people can still get sick. So should you wear a mask? That's up to you. Your odds are still that, you could still get sick.
Take a trip back in time and talk to your 10-year-old version of yourself and tell the 10-year-old version of yourself that you're giving yourself permission to wear a mask anywhere you go. And I assure you that 10-year-old version of yourself will jump at the chance to wear a mask anywhere they go.
I can assure you that the person that found my debit card today and fucked me over was more than happy that he was wearing a mask when he went and fucking used it at McDonald's and 3 other places, and nobody ID'd him because nobody's going to ask, basically you use your card, they don't even ask for your ID because they're not going to make you pull your mask off to make sure it's you under there. Yeah, luckily he went to Far-Fetched and tried to order some Yeezys, and it pinged my wife's phone, and she's like, "No, we're not buying $539 shoes. Stop my card."
Well, I would suggest maybe using less lube on your hands when you're touching your card.
Yeah, I will. Yeah. Well, no, I went.
You don't lose it, and somebody else picks it up.
Well, I went to Dell's Wings and Things over in Garfield and got some greasy fucking wings, and I thought I'd slipped it in my pocket.
Nailed it.
But something happened there.
Premature lube will get you, man. You got to be careful with that stuff. That's why they give you those wipes.
Yeah.
Wait, they give you the wipes, man. They give you the wipes and ask for extras. Because you wear a 3XL head.
What's nice is when you buy a Genius,
your hands are probably at least a few extras.
If you knew the place I went to, you would know that there's grease fucking everywhere. That you would need a truckload of wipes to ungrease Dell's Wings and Things, which is a soul food joint that's been around way too long.
I can envision your card just like literally popping up.
Oh, you can barely. You walk in there, you
lost in the ether.
You walk in there, you can barely stand on the floor. You go to grab the door to get out, and you got to fucking.
So now you know. Don't use your card there.
They got a pump full of sanitizer and a bucket of sand.
Yeah.
That's your only chance.
That's it.
I like when Chris. When I was looking at Chris's Janus in your shop. It has that thing on the back. You can put a roll, so you can always have a wipe for your Janus in case you want to keep it clean.
Yeah, wipe your Janus.
Yeah.
That's why I got a fancy toilet.
I hear Preparation H makes some really nice things for your Janus.
It can tighten the valve. I heard it just closes the valve in the Janus.
All right. Oh my God. That's awful. Okay, so before we do another 3-hour tour,
yes,
on behalf of the Cleveland Moto Podcast, I hope you have a happy holidays, considering if we record the next one on Friday of Christmas Eve, it won't drop until Boxing Day probably. Right. So so from all of us here at Cleveland Moto, happy holidays and ride fast and take chances.
What button?
I don't even know where to button.